The dim light of the early morning trickled through the forest canopy, soft and cool like the breath of a sleeping mountain. A warm haze hung just above the moss-covered stones, and the air held the faint, earthy scent of old rain and crushed herbs. Cain stood alone. His silhouette was caught in a moment of stillness, posture uncertain. The worn strap of his satchel clung to his shoulder, and tucked beneath the folds of his cloak, his fingers clenched instinctively around the hilt of a modest dagger. He looked forward, not with the eyes of a predator, nor of a knight, but as a man familiar with the weight of solitude and the tension of paths yet taken. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Behind him, dappled light kissed the edges of his figure, but in front of him, the air darkened, just subtly. And in that hush, a girl stood. She was not from this forest, no. Her presence was too sharp, too intentional. Her hair flowed like embers under sunlight, and in her eyes there was a fire that spoke of urgency, pain, and something unspoken that stretched beyond the mortal realm. She looked at him not with suspicion, but with plea. At her side, a sword, sleek, gleaming with ritual purity and hardened steel, lay dormant for now, but ready. Her cloak fluttered faintly with the wind that whispered between them, carrying not just leaves, but tension. Cain blinked slowly. He recognized her now. It was her, the girl from the shrine path, the same one whose hands trembled when she searched for the fruit of revival, the one who hadn't cried, even when she thought she'd lose her dearest friend. Her lips parted slightly. Cain, she said, his name barely a breath, but full of weight. He didn't answer immediately. He watched her, not like a hero, not like a warrior, just a man. Her sword wasn't drawn yet, but the way she stood, with feet squared and a shadow of sorrow beneath her gaze, it was clear she was ready to do anything. He could see it in her eyes. She wasn't here to ask, she was here because there was no other choice. And deep in Cain's chest, something shifted. A sense of déjà vu? No. A thread of fate, tightening once more around him, unseen but unrelenting. The sun spilled its light across polished wooden floors as the day continued within the estate. Behind closed doors and sliding panels painted with flowing ink depictions of cranes and plum blossoms, the world was quiet, too quiet for a child. In the outer courtyard hall, Lu Feilong paced with thoughtful energy. "I heard you can't go outside," he said aloud, arms crossed, his brows furrowed. The line was delivered more as a challenge than sympathy, but something softened in his eyes as he glanced toward Z. Before long, with the fire of an idea igniting in his expression, Feilong gave a small shout, "Oh, I've got it," and darted off, his light steps pattering on the stone tiles as he slipped through one door and into the next chamber. He returned moments later, carrying a large wooden box. It was heavy, but he bore it proudly in both arms, like an offering to a sovereign. The box clattered with energy, its contents shifting wildly inside with each step. "Let's play with these," he beamed. With a loud clatter he dropped the box in front of the others, sending wooden dolls and toy soldiers toppling over each other like a captured garrison. The noise echoed through the soft hush of the estate, but the warmth in Feilong's smile was louder. Ziyu, the child who had once spoken with delicate hesitation, flinched slightly, his shoulders stiffened as though uncertain how to respond to such unguarded enthusiasm. Lu Feilong was the first to kneel beside him, her movements composed, hair tied with chrysanthemum clips that matched the gentle poise in her voice. "Choose whatever you like," she said kindly, her hands gesturing toward the pile. "Oh, okay," Ziyu murmured, his fingers moving hesitantly toward the toys. The uncertainty in his voice carried the softest tremor, one that made Feilong's smile grow just a little gentler, as though he understood the weight of that simple reply. Under the delicate glow of the midday sun, laughter soon replaced silence. Within the circle of toys and company, barriers began to ease. Behind a finely carved screen, a watchful figure peered through a narrow opening. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the air, mixing with the aroma of tea that steamed gently in the small porcelain cups. "Oh good," the figure thought with quiet relief. "I was worried about how it'd go at first, but it looks like they're playing peacefully." The room she watched from was shaded in warm hues, crimson and gold, with rich silk drapes that fell in waves across the windows. Within, several figures sat in formal repose on flat cushions, the low tables between them, holding grapes and ink-brushed scrolls. The discussion was quiet, but charged. A voice broke the stillness. "So explain about Feilong." A woman with dark hair and eyes clear as a winter lake, sat with perfect posture. She answered with measured tone. "All right, she came to the Lu family in order to strengthen our ties with the Lu family," she said, not glancing up from the cup she cradled, "so that father could finally give up on you marrying Ru." Across from her a young man's face tightened. "This is my fault," he murmured, half to himself, as if the conclusion had come too quickly, and far too late. Another voice, a deeper one, aged with experience, cut in gently but firmly. This was for the best. He sat apart, eyes lidded, his long silver hair spilling over dark robes. His tone held finality, not cruelty, but resignation. The quiet continued, filled only by the sound of a distant flute from the garden, and the soft rustle of a child's laughter filtering in from beyond the walls. "What do you mean?" she asked, a hand rising instinctively to her chest. Her voice trembled just slightly, shaken not only by the ambiguity of the statement, but by a growing sense of unease blooming beneath her ribs. He didn't look at her. He didn't need to. If Quillan had stayed with the Liu family, he said slowly, like a truth sharpened by years of silence, she wouldn't be able to smile like this. The room, already quiet, seemed to fall into a deeper hush. The incense that lingered between them felt suddenly heavier, suffocating. Outside memory, a different scene unfolded, one not cloaked in tea and elegance, but set beneath a twilight sky, lit by ceremonial lanterns and falling petals. Figures walked in delicate procession, servants and officials, a child standing quietly in their midst. She was small, her expression passive, her every step controlled. Little Liu Quillan, draped in finery too grand for her frail shoulders, bowed again and again under the watchful eyes of those around her. Quillan's family was hardly wealthy, he continued, his voice now distant, almost narrating a tale he wished wasn't real, and had far too many children. Perhaps, they gave her away to reduce the number of mouths to feed. She was adopted, just 3 months before the selection ceremony, chosen, groomed, polished. Proper etiquette was drilled into her, day and night. Every moment she smiled, every bow she made, every word she uttered, had been molded for the benefit of those who saw her only as a tool. Quillan was the adopted daughter of the former chancellor of the left, Li Renjin, he added. He took her in to use her as an empress candidate, because of her beauty, her popularity. The scene was cruel in its elegance. Children lined up, refined and obedient, their innocence stripped and replaced with duty. It was a pageant of hope and manipulation, and Quillan was its quiet centerpiece. In only 3 months, the woman gasped. The idea sounded absurd, inhuman, and yet, there it was. "Yeah," came the weary response. But then the empress selection business fell through, and Li Renjin lost his position. His hand reached for the teacup, but he paused before lifting it, eyes shaded by tired lashes. "The Li family is in turmoil now, and the lady of the family, she only cares about her son Ru, the golden boy, the heir, the child she was meant to serve as a sister, but whom she could never truly reach." The only one by Quillan's side was a strict instructor, he said, the weight in his voice deepening. "Ru, as the new head, is doing all he can to revitalize the family. He has no time for his adopted little sister." The words struck hard. Each revelation added another brick to the wall being built inside her, one of guilt, of pity, of helplessness. "So Quillan was," she began, but the words dissolved. She didn't finish the sentence. She couldn't, because now the image of that sweet quiet girl laughing gently with Feilong and choosing toys with trembling fingers, felt so unbearably fragile. A delicate blossom that had only just begun to bloom, pulled from one cold pot into another, and still, somehow, miraculously, managing to smile. The thought echoed in silence, falling like a final petal from a cut flower. He sat alone, surrounded by untouched dishes, their aromas long since faded. In the flicker of the lantern, the soft curve of a rice bowl, and the pale glow of fruit on the plate only seemed to emphasize the loneliness at the table. Always alone, that had been her life in the Li household. His memories returned, and the weight of his decision settled heavily on his shoulders. The sound of soft footsteps, the rustle of silk. A guest had arrived. In the hall, figures passed beneath the towering pillars of the manor, their shadows stretching across polished wooden floors. "Thank you for coming to visit the Li family," Rui said, with formal calm, though behind his words was a painful resignation. "Though it troubles me, I believe this is for the best." His guest didn't respond at first, perhaps too surprised by the solemn tone, or the weary eyes that said more than etiquette ever could. "So where is Quillan?" Rui paused, then with a small incline of his head, said softly, "This way." He led them down the corridor. His steps were steady, but his heart felt brittle. He had made his decision, not as a brother, not as a noble, but as someone who had long watched a child grow in silence, locked behind walls of cold expectation. "Please," he said, stopping at the door. His voice dropped, barely above a whisper. Take care of her. Behind that door, the little girl sat in a room far too grand for someone so small. Curtains framed the scene, the room draped in elegance and roses. Quilon was perched at the edge of a raised platform bed, her back straight, hands politely folded in her lap. Her eyes, usually so alert, so precise in their practiced calm, now looked dull, blank. She stared into nothing, and the weight of that emptiness was suffocating. Alone, she had been alone for so long. The doors creaked open behind her, light spilled in. She did not react, not at first, but the moment Rui's voice called her name, Quilon, something within her lit up. Not much, just a flicker, but it was enough. Her body moved before her mind caught up. Her expression, once cold and lifeless, burst with sudden emotion. Ru, she cried out, voice ringing with childlike joy. In a rustle of robes and hairpins, she leapt forward, tears not quite visible, but felt all the same. And in that moment, just for that brief radiant moment, Quilon was no longer the quiet porcelain doll paraded before nobles. The moment passed too quickly. Just as Quilon's heart dared to swell with joy at seeing him, Rui's words cut through the hope like silk through wind. I'm sorry, Quilon. I'll have to leave again right away. The warmth drained from her face, her wide eyes, still sparkling from the joy of reunion, dimmed visibly. She took a tiny step back, her little hands clenching the hem of her sleeve. Then, with a tremble she tried to hide, she bowed her head and murmured, I understand, Ru. I'll be good. Her voice was soft, obedient, too obedient. It wasn't the voice of a child being brave. It was the voice of a child used to being left behind. She stood still, as Rui turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing into silence. The swish of her sleeves was the only sound as she turned and lowered herself into a deeper bow, small fingers tightening, knuckles pale with effort. Outside, a quiet figure watched her, dressed in elegant robes, his long hair pulled back. Lu Xing's gaze softened as he stepped forward. You're Linhua's brother? Quilon asked, lifting her head, just enough to look at him with open curiosity. Xing crouched slightly, so that their eyes could meet more evenly. Nice to meet you, Quilon. I'm Lu Xing. You met Lu Linhua at the selection ceremony, didn't you? I'm her big brother. His voice was calm, gentle, and unlike the ones she was used to. It didn't issue commands, it invited. I know it's sudden, he continued, but I'd like you to join the Lu family. Her brows furrowed slightly. Huh. Xing's gaze softened even more. I have a little brother the same age as you, he said. Linhua won't be there, but if you join my mom, my little brother, and me as part of our family, I'm sure we'll all be happy. Quilon's expression changed. Something in her chest tightened, something warm. She looked up at him, her voice trembling slightly with a question so fragile, it sounded like it might shatter, if answered wrong. So if I go with you, I won't be alone anymore. Xing's answer came without hesitation. Yeah, that's right. Quilon's small hands clenched at her sleeves again, but this time, not from sorrow. It was hope. Hope, wrapped in the voice of a stranger, who might become home. Quilon's lip trembled. The words had been simple, gentle even, but they cracked something deep inside her. For so long, she had learned how to stand still and silent, how to smile without letting it reach her eyes, how to bow at just the right angle to avoid drawing notice. She had never been asked what she wanted, never promised anything as dangerous and dazzling as belonging. And now, standing beneath a sky of falling petals, she heard the words again. You won't be alone anymore. Her eyes widened, her vision shimmered. In the next instant, tears slipped down her cheeks, uninvited but unstoppable. Her chest ached with the sudden, unfamiliar surge of emotion that rose up, fear, relief, hope, all tangled together. Lu Xing, still crouched before her, reached out and placed a warm hand atop her small head. His touch was careful, steady, the kind of gesture she had always yearned for, but never received. As if to say, it's okay now. A gasp caught in her throat, and her breath shook, as the tears kept falling, glimmering in the soft light like pearls in the wind. Somewhere else in the manor, a quieter conversation unfolded. A girl's voice, laced with nervous curiosity, asked, will Quilon have to marry Filong in the future? Another voice cut in dryly. Could you stop talking like that? A third voice chimed in, amused. Xing's face, puts children at ease, so they're easier to drag away. But beyond the jesting, a far more serious truth hovered in the air. Create a good environment for Quilon, so that she's happy she joined the Lu family. That's the current plan, unless father changes his mind.
I sincerely just want her to have a good time. Someone else said, their tone heartfelt, and in a nearby corner of the estate, 3 children sat together, toys scattered in a loose circle of giggles and soft voices. Quilom, her eyes still misty, but now shining, smiled freely between Lu Quilom and Filong, laughter beginning to spill out from her lips like a secret, finally set free. Linhua, standing just outside the threshold, turned to her brother and mother. Brother, mother, thank you for your hard work. And farther away, in a more secluded hall, dressed in velvet drapery, another conversation was taking place. Please don't let the adults mistreat her anymore, Linhua said, her voice tight with feeling. I wish for her to live a healthy and happy life. The man standing opposite her placed a hand to her cheek gently, meeting her gaze without blinking. Linhua, I'll assist in this endeavor as much as I can, since I'm partly to blame for the Empress selection ceremony being held. Her heart beat faster, but there was sincerity in his eyes, and responsibility. There was nothing more reassuring than the fact that Soren himself was willing to help. Change had begun. The old threads of loneliness were finally being cut, and somewhere in that blooming spring air, Quilon's quiet sobs had turned into something else entirely. A fragile, precious smile. The air in the reception hall was calm, but a flutter of tension still lingered in the corners, hidden beneath silken sleeves and polite expressions. A soft gasp escaped Linhua's lips. She hadn't expected the matriarch's presence so soon, nor the graceful curve of her smile. Lady Lu, adorned with an intricate hairpiece and floral robes, radiated both authority and gentleness. Her calm, knowing grin was enough to disarm any formal decorum left in the room. I'm grateful for your hospitality, the noblewoman said, folding her hands elegantly before her. Even though the visit was only decided a few days ago. Sorry for how sudden it was, Linhua added, her tone courteous and measured, though her heart still beat faster from surprise. The older woman inclined her head slightly. Once again I thank you for coming. The words were simple, but behind them was something more than ritual. Gratitude, yes, but also a subtle acknowledgement that this gathering held more weight than it let on. Seated nearby, Shuren responded with his usual poise. Thank you for your kind words, he said softly, and I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank you. His gaze settled gently on Linhua, for offering to marry my dear daughter. Linhua's breath caught again. This wasn't just a political match, it was a moment of change, the soft ripple of a new life forming. No need to thank me, Shuren replied, voice low but resolute. It appears you've already heard from the Chancellor of the Right. But yes, I'd like to take Linhua as my consort. There was no boast in his tone, just the still gravity of a decision long considered. Then, as though realizing the weight he'd placed on Linhua's shoulders, he turned to her more personally, reaching out with rare tenderness. I hope you'll forgive me for bringing Linhua here like this, he said, voice gentling further. As a mother, I'm sure it must have been difficult to accept such a sudden visit. Linhua didn't answer right away, but something in her eyes softened, just slightly. It was more than diplomacy now. This was the meeting of people whose lives were quietly but irrevocably entwining, through duty perhaps, through care, certainly, and the quiet warmth of those small gestures, those words wrapped in sincerity, held just enough strength to shift the air around them into something far more human than ceremony. A promise had been made, and with it, a future gently begun. Midday light drifted gently through the high windows of the dining hall, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Platters of delicately arranged food lay untouched, their fragrances mingling with the soft rustle of robes and quiet conversation. Between bites of formality and long-held silence, deeper currents flowed. Shuren sat beside Linhua, his posture graceful but relaxed, eyes occasionally drifting toward the far corner, where children's laughter echoed. Nearby, Xiao, Feilong, and Quilon sat around a tray, smiling, talking, sharing sweets, ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in meaning. They were building something rare and precious, a sense of ease. Linhua glanced toward them, her expression unreadable, then back to her elder brother. Ah, I see, she murmured, voice soft with realization. Perhaps this was one of the goals of today's inspection all along. Her thoughts drifted. Not only was it to show Shiyu the city, and introduce him to the country he must protect, but to let him play, even briefly, like a child, with Feilong and Quilong. others his age. It hadn't been just about politics or expectations, it had been about humanity. Shuren's voice was calm, but thoughtful. It was also meant to allow me to meet face to face with my mother. A quiet beat passed. It's a fairly jam-packed schedule, Linhua thought, but that's so very like Shuren. At another end of the room, seated amidst cushions and the blooming shade of floral decor, the royal matriarch observed with serene poise. Her words came with grace, but each one carried weight. I am very pleased that you brought my daughter to see me like this. There was a deeper message in her tone, not merely gratitude, but a soft vulnerability, tucked like a petal between layers of regal composure. Additionally, she began again, her eyes finding Shuren's, with knowing calm. I would like to express my sincere gratitude. She paused just long enough for the words to sink in, that the man who can do as he likes with my daughter, has gone out of his way to visit today. Linhua's heart fluttered, not from fear, but from realization. This wasn't ordinary approval. This was something more personal, more real. Her thoughts flickered. Mother has taken a liking to Shuren, and that meant everything. As long as my father is satisfied, she reflected quietly, there's no need for him to come to the Loom residence. A member of the royal family is not required to visit the household of his fiancée, but he had come anyway, because it mattered, because she mattered. And so, without fanfare or declaration, the future shifted again, not as a political contract, but as the slow, uncertain beginning of trust. I wanted to see for myself, Shuren said, his voice low, threaded with sincerity, what kind of woman the Chancellor of the Right's wife is. He wasn't posturing, and there was no trace of obligation in his words. Instead, he looked directly at the elegant woman before him, with quiet intent, as though her presence itself held answers. Plus, he added, the faintest smile playing at the corners of his lips, I was interested to see the household where the strong-willed Linhua was raised. The blossoms surrounding him seemed to echo the sentiment, quiet but blooming, like admiration concealed beneath formal grace. Oh my, the lady replied, with a slight tilt of her head, though a glint of pleased surprise touched her eyes. Her tone remained composed, but it was impossible to hide the way her gaze softened. Linhua stood quietly nearby, observing the exchange with a heart both full and uncertain. I've never thought of myself as strong-willed, she reflected, a flicker of warmth brushing her cheeks, but I suppose that's the impression Shuren has of me. A faint smile crept across her lips, then her mother turned, positively radiant. Her serene elegance was laced with something unfamiliar, genuine happiness. Mother, Linhua asked, startled, why are you so happy? The question was innocent, but it reached deep. The older woman chuckled softly, folding her hands in her lap. Well, I must admit, I carried some suspicions. Her tone remained gentle, but her words held weight, that perhaps Shuren had simply been overcome by my husband's ambition, or a weakness of his to exploit, resulting in him reluctantly agreeing to marry you. Linhua's breath caught. She hadn't known, or maybe she had, in the quietest corners of her heart. But now, hearing it aloud, and seeing her mother smile like that, it made something tighten behind her eyes. The lady's gaze turned toward Shuren again. Are you saying, she asked carefully, you wanted to marry Linhua after learning of her personality? Shuren didn't hesitate. Yes, that is very good of you, she said, the softest approval beneath her dignified words. The daisies and chrysanthemums drawn around her seemed to bloom even brighter, as if they too responded to the tenderness in the room. For the first time in a long while, admiration and trust flowed between future in-laws, quiet, sincere, and healing. In that moment, a thread of doubt loosened in Linhua's chest, and where it had been, something warmer settled in its place. Shuren's voice was calm, his gaze steady. Worry not, my desire for Linhua is genuine. It was a simple statement, yet in its quiet finality, it silenced the doubts that had once lingered in the shadows. His sincerity wasn't coded in flourish or dramatics, only truth. From the corner of the room, two young figures listened with knowing expressions. Feilong squinted with playful exasperation. That's definitely something father would do, he muttered, sighing deeply, as if accustomed to such romantic grand gestures. Linhua's mother studied Shuren carefully, her eyes reflecting a softened understanding. I understand that now, she said, voice low, filled with the weight of her earlier worries finally lifted. For a woman so long accustomed to propriety and protocol, acknowledging trust did not come easily, but here it was. Then Linhua, her voice trembling slightly, stood and bowed deeply. Her expression was earnest, brows furrowed as if the words were difficult to push past her pride. "Mother," she began, "although it was my duty, I know my sudden entry into the palace caused you great concern." She paused, then added quietly, "I'm sorry that I did whatever I pleased." Her mother looked at her, not coldly, not with reprimand, but with understanding rooted in long-held affection. "You already apologized profusely in your letters," she said, with a gentle smile. "It's enough if you understand how I felt." Shuren placed a hand on Linhua's shoulder. His touch was light, but grounding, like a promise quietly renewed. Linhua blinked at the contact, her cheeks coloring faintly. It was the kind of small gesture that said everything louder than words.
Across the room, the matriarch took in the scene, her daughter humbled, her future son-in-law protective but measured, and smiled with contentment blooming in her expression like the peonies that adorned her sleeves. "It appears that man kept his promise," she said aloud, and in the stillness that followed it was clear she didn't just mean Soren's words, she meant the vow of happiness, of kindness, of choosing Linhua not for power, not for gain, but because he truly saw her, and this time, no one needed to say a thing, because the truth was already written across every shared glance and every quiet smile. The conversation shifted to a tone more relaxed, yet far more revealing. As the petals of formality peeled away, sincerity lay at the core of their exchange. Lady Lu, her expression serene, leaned slightly forward. "I know you and Xing don't think of him as a good father," she said, her words direct yet devoid of judgment. "Huh?" Linhua blinked, startled by such open candor. Soren, seated beside her, didn't hesitate. "Yeah," he replied calmly, nodding with quiet affirmation. Linhua, overwhelmed by their frankness, could only mutter under her breath, "So frank," while her thoughts spun. The lady chuckled softly and continued, "Naturally, as the Chancellor of the Right, he's also a troublesome and idiosyncratic man to Soren." The image of Lu Xiaoming appeared in her thoughts, stern, composed, a man whose public reputation was wrapped in ambition. "Lu Xiaoming may seem greedy and ambitious to the public," she said, her tone rich with insight, "but in reality he doesn't have much of a lust for power." The statement landed softly, yet held a surprising weight. Three figures, Linhua, Soren and Xing, appeared momentarily in overlapping thought bubbles, their expressions mixed with uncertainty and reflection. "You're wrong about that," their collective memory whispered. But the lady held firm. "It's the truth," she declared. "He just wants to involve himself in complicated matters." Her gaze turned inward, as if reciting from long-held conversations. "He has said that ensuring the government and the Lu family thrive must be the most difficult job in all of Guangying." The sentiment surprised them all. So it wasn't for personal gain? Linhua thought, stunned. It was for responsibility. "That's exactly why he finds it so interesting," the lady concluded with a calm smile, her words painted with quiet admiration. Her robes shimmered under the soft glow of the hall, surrounded by delicate florals. There was no grandeur in her delivery, just the kind of wisdom that had been earned through watching, listening, and loving a complicated man for many years. What began as a formal introduction had become something more meaningful, an unveiling of truths, not just between noble families, but between generations. And in that space, as petals floated quietly to the floor, understanding began to bloom. A heavy silence settled briefly in the room, as Soren leaned back in his seat, the candlelight playing softly along his sharp features. "Ah, so that's how it is," he murmured, eyes half-lidded in contemplation. "Huh?" Linhua blinked, caught off guard. "Huh?" echoed another voice beside her. From across the table, Xing closed his eyes with a resigned sigh. "I understand," he said quietly, "but I wish I didn't." Linhua turned to him, eyes wide with concern. This wasn't a matter of mere policy or politics. This was the unspoken burden of those born into the upper echelons of a great house, and it was pressing on them all. A grand image unfolded in their minds, the emblem of the Lu family, a family whose power was unmatched among the 5 great clans of Guangying. Their influence soared like the wings etched into their crest, both beautiful and terrifying. It would be easy to govern if he were willing to act as a tyrant. The matriarch mused aloud, her voice detached, almost floating. But guiding the country toward a prosperous future, is a laborious task. Soren's fingers twitched slightly where they rested. To allow the Lu family to flourish even more than it already has, the lady continued, will be truly difficult, and the burden of that task, Lin Hua realized, didn't just rest on officials, it was placed quietly upon every child born into the family's highest ranks. The higher one stood, the farther there was to fall. I suppose you're right, Soren said softly. While the middle-ranking members of the family possess the potential for growth, the highest-ranking members always face the possibility of falling. His words resonated like the calm before a storm. Lady Lu turned her eyes toward him. I believe he has entrusted his daughter to you, Soren, she said, because he believes you to be worthy. Soren's gaze flickered. His responsibility must be a heavy one, he admitted, tilting his head slightly. And then, without missing a beat, the lady added, when Linfeng was born, I told him. Her voice faded into memory, an image of her younger self, cradling a newborn in soft robes, standing before a man who bore the silent gravitas of power. If you're going to use our daughter as a tool, she had said then, her voice firm, you must ensure that she will be happy. It hadn't been a plea, it had been a command cloaked in love. Please judge from all perspectives, she added, and find her a good husband. That wish, spoken years ago in a dimly lit room, now echoed across time, settling like dust between them. And looking at Soren now, calm, steadfast, unflinching, it was clear, he was that man, the one she had wished for, the one who would not just protect Lin Hua, but carry the weight of responsibility without crushing her under it. The unspoken vow filled the air, carried on the quiet rustle of falling petals. In the refined stillness of the Lu household, a quiet yet deeply emotional scene plays out beneath the hush of falling flower petals and fading light. The scene centers on the soft, tender moment, when a mother and father, once immersed in the rigid responsibilities of high rank and political maneuvering, hold their newborn child, a delicate bundle wrapped in a patterned cloth. The child stirs gently, unaware of the burdens her existence already stirs in the hearts of those around her. Her small hands, clutched and soft, reach out unknowingly to the future being crafted for her. The father, Lu Shemuming, known to many as the stern and unyielding chancellor of the right, cradles the child with uncharacteristic gentleness. His firm jaw and sharp eyes remain composed, yet his words betray a complex depth. Mixing in something as ambiguous as my daughter's happiness, he muses aloud, will make things all the more difficult and interesting. The line, spoken with an almost amused tone, paints the man not as heartless, but rather as a strategist, a man used to treating the world like a board of chess, yet learning to add pieces shaped like emotion and love. This challenge, this ambiguity, her happiness, intrigues him. In an earlier moment, his wife, elegant and resolute, had placed the weight of that happiness on his shoulders. If you're going to use our daughter as a tool, she had said sternly, her eyes hard yet pleading, you must ensure that she will be happy. Her maternal protectiveness clashed with the utilitarian world of court politics, but she held her ground. She had been raised among those games, and now refused to let her daughter be crushed by them. He, in turn, had nodded, not as a man resigned, but as a man piqued, curious. Sounds good, he said simply, a half-smile playing on his lips. Later, this exchange is reflected upon by the child's future guardians. The empress-to-be, Lin Hua, thinks of this man, her father, who had orchestrated so much with her fate, and she voices the unspoken worry, oh so it's just interesting to him. Her mother offers quiet reassurance, I hope you won't hate him for that. Her expression softens, he did all those things, making you an empress candidate, hinting you'd marry into the Lu family, with the intent of bringing you happiness. But even as understanding blooms, there's a clear-eyed truth to be spoken. Lin Hua sighs, tilting her head slightly, lips curling into a weary smile. There's no doubt he doesn't understand other people's hearts very well. It's not spoken cruelly, just honestly. I think that's the biggest problem though, mother. Beside her, her mother lets out a soft laugh. I questioned his approach, for sure, she says, though a glimmer of fondness lights her eyes. Through these intricate layers of dialogue, quiet gestures, and deeply felt but rarely stated emotions, the manga paints a vivid portrait of familial expectations, the collision between love and duty, and the slow, sometimes painful journey of those trying to reshape tradition in the name of compassion. The glow of lanterns had barely begun to warm the polished wood of the Lu household, when truths, long buried beneath protocol and ambition,
began to unfold like petals on a spring breeze. Lu Shang's voice was low and steady, yet it carried the weight of deep knowing. If Quillen had stayed with the Liu family, she wouldn't be able to smile like this. His eyes were filled with calm sadness. The woman across from him, startled by the quiet certainty in his words, whispered, "What do you mean?" A soft gust of wind passed between them, carrying memories with it. Quillen's family wasn't wealthy. They had too many children, and perhaps they gave her away to ease the burden. His words were spoken with care, not judgment. Flashes of the past stirred to life. A little girl, wide-eyed and still unaccustomed to her new silk robes, was led into the Liu state, not out of love, but necessity. 3 months before the Empress selection ceremony, she was adopted, not as a daughter, but as a candidate. Liu Renjin, the chancellor of the left, needed a graceful, lovely girl to increase his standing. Quillen, already blessed with beauty and gentleness, was transformed into a candidate with drilled etiquette and polished manners. She was just a pawn, the woman murmured, realization dawning. In only 3 months, Liu Shang nodded gravely. The selection fell through, and Liu Renjin lost his post. Now the family is in chaos. The lady of the house only cares for her son, Rui. Quillen had no one but a cold instructor. The image painted was clear and cruel. Quillen, dressed in finery, yet always alone. Rui, that very son, made a decision, a difficult one. Though it troubles me, he had said to a visitor, I believe this is for the best. He bowed deeply. Please, take care of her. And so, on that day of wind and parting light, Quillen was called forth. She stood small and composed within a garden of roses, her eyes dim, her posture stiff, alone again. The moment she saw Rui, her expression broke open into delight. Rui, his name flew from her lips, like a bird freed from its cage. Quillen, he replied softly, with that rare gentleness he saved only for her, yet it was goodbye. I'm sorry, Quillen, I'll have to leave again right away. The child's joy faltered. She blinked, clenched her hands. I understand, Rui, I'll be good. A swish of his robes, and he was gone, leaving her once more in the echoing silence of the corridors. But fate shifted in that very moment. A new presence emerged. Liu Shang, calm and composed. You met Liu Linhua at the selection, didn't you? I'm her brother. He knelt, so he was eye level with Quillen. I have a little brother the same age as you. Would you like to join our family? Quillen blinked up at him, confusion and longing colliding in her gaze. So if I go with you, I won't be alone anymore. Liu Shang smiled warmly. Yeah, that's right. Her tiny hand clutched her sleeve, lip trembling, before her eyes overflowed. Her silent tears, illuminated by drifting petals, whispered all the things her voice could not. That day, a decision was made. Quillen entered the Liu family, not as a tool, not as a showpiece, but as a child in need of warmth. And warmth she received. Linhua, full of spirit, Fei Long, loud and cheerful, even Shang's mother, who softly asked, will she have to marry Fei Long in the future, and received only a flustered protest in return. No, could you stop talking like that? Shang's answer was earnest. All we can do is create a good environment for her. I just want her to be happy. And for once, happiness was not an unreachable thing. The hall stood quiet, its warmth lost in the spaces of grand stone and polished wood. Morning light spilled in delicate beams, through the carved windows, touching lightly upon a lonely girl seated at a wide dining table. Her small form was dwarfed by the large room, and her hands, folded in her lap, remained still even as steam curled up from untouched bowls. She was always alone. No laughter, no siblings teasing, no warm words from loving parents. The silence pressed on her shoulders like invisible weights. But somewhere else, a man made up his mind. Rui stood with silent dignity in the courtyard of the Liu family. His expression was calm, though burdened. Thank you for coming to visit the Liu family, he said to the man before him, the head of the Liu family. Though it troubles me, I believe this is for the best. The other man nodded solemnly. Please, take care of her. Where is Quillen? Asked a gentle voice. Rui turned, his voice tight with a quiet ache. This way. Quillen sat quietly, on a raised platform, her small body wrapped in layers of ornate robes. Her eyes stared at nothing, dulled by a loneliness too heavy for her tender age. But when the doors opened with a creak, and the footsteps of 2 men approached, her ears twitched, her eyes widened. She recognized him. Rui, she cried, bounding forward, the heavy layers of silk, billowing with her sudden movement. Quillen. Rui's voice was gentle, yet strained, as if it took all he had to speak the words. I'm sorry, Quillen, he said, kneeling down to meet her eyes. I'll have to leave again right away. Quillen's brave smile faltered, her large eyes shimmering. Still, she nodded, ever the obedient girl. I understand, Rui. I'll be good. Then a man with flowing silver blonde hair knelt beside her. His face was calm, his voice warm. Nice to meet you, Quillen. I'm Lu Shang. You're Lin Hua's brother, she asked softly, eyes still wet with unshed tears. Yes, you met Lin Hua at the selection ceremony, didn't you? She nodded. I'd like you to join the Lu family, he said with a smile. Quillen blinked. Huh, I know it's sudden, Shang said, but I have a little brother about your age, and though Lin Hua won't be there, you'll have me, my brother, and my mother. I'm my mother. I think we'd be happy together. Quillen hesitated. So if I go with you, I won't be alone anymore. Shang's smile deepened. Yeah, that's right. The spring wind fluttered petals around them, as her small hands clenched at the fabric of her robes. Her eyes, wide and shimmering, finally brimmed over, tears sliding down her cheeks. Shang gently placed a hand atop her head. You'll be okay now. Elsewhere, questions buzzed. Would Quillen be expected to marry into the Lu family? Lin Hua asked gently, but her mother, with a soft smile, redirected the focus. What matters now, she said, is that she has a place where she can smile. In the garden, Quillen was already surrounded by new friends, Fei Long, and the younger Lu brother. They sat cross-legged, drinking juice, and sharing sweets with happy squeals. I just want her to have a good time, Lin Hua whispered, and many others, even from the palace, pledged to help protect that joy. Later that evening, a meal was shared among dignitaries. As wine poured, and dishes clinked, conversations turned weighty. The mother of Lin Hua, radiant in her noble robes, spoke with calm grace. I thank you, she said to the visiting prince, for taking Lin Hua as your consort. The prince, Shunned, lowered his gaze politely. No need to thank me. I did what I believed was right. I was glad to meet the man who could do as he pleased with my daughter and still chose to visit us here. When Lin Hua, sitting beside him, felt her heart twist with emotion, Shunned spoke low. I wanted to see for myself the home that raised such a strong girl. Her mother chuckled, eyes glinting. Oh my. The family continued to speak over the hours, reflecting on responsibilities, happiness, and the balance of power and love. Even Quillen's place in the Lu family had been part of a greater effort, one woven into politics, into stability, into love. And though the chancellor seemed like a cold man to some, he had told his wife once, long ago, if you're going to use our daughter as a tool, you must ensure she will be happy, and he had remembered that promise. Now in the final moments of their visit, Quillen's new guardian bowed low. Please take care of Lin Hua, she whispered to Soren. She's strong-willed, yes, but also quite adorable. Soren reached out to gently pet Lin Hua's head. Her heart pounded wildly in her chest. Yeah, I know. I'd like to think I'm second only to you when it comes to knowing her good qualities. And Lin Hua, red to the ears, could hardly stand the embarrassment of being doted on in front of everyone. Her mother, her brother, even Rui. Don't you need to get back to the palace? She blurted, desperate to change the subject. He only laughed. I was given an unexpected break. You can stay until the day after tomorrow. She blinked in surprise. Huh. He leaned in, voice tender. You'll be back at the palace soon enough, Lin Hua. Nender the gentle warm morning light, streaming through the thin curtains. Little Quillen bowed her head. Her large shiny eyes were clouded with sorrow. She clenched her hands, trying not to cry. Standing before her was Rui, composed and calm, but his voice carried a hint of guilt. I'm sorry, Quillen. I have to leave again, right now. The girl looked up at him, tears already glimmering in the corners of her eyes. She swallowed them back, and nodded softly. I understand, Rui. I'll be good. Left alone, she stood silently in the room, until suddenly, a stranger approached her. A young man, with long blonde hair and a calm piercing aura. He knelt to her level, and smiled gently. Nice to meet you, Quillen. I'm Lu Xian, Lin Hua's older brother. You met her at the selection ceremony, right? Quillen asked hesitantly. You're Lin Hua's brother. Xian nodded. Yes, and I'd like you to become part of our family. The girl froze. Her gaze was confused. Her lips slightly parted. I know it's sudden, he said kindly, but if you join our family, mine, my mother's, and my younger brother's, I believe we'll all be happy. My brother is about your age. Quillen's eyes shimmered with hope. So, if I go with you, I won't be alone anymore. Cian smiled gently, and placed a hand on her head. Petals floated around them. Soft light filled the room. A glow sparked in her eyes, and tears streamed down her cheeks. For the first time, she felt truly wanted in a family. That's right, Cian said softly. You won't be alone anymore. The following scenes unfold like a dream. In the spacious Lu family hall, they discuss Quillen's future. One woman asks, will Quillen be expected to marry Fullen someday? Stop it, someone replies sarcastically, waving her off. Cian's calm face puts children at ease, easy to reel them in. Another jokes. Despite the teasing, the atmosphere is warm. The family earnestly agrees to create a loving environment for Quillen. Everyone genuinely wants her to be happy. Lin Hua stands quietly to the side, her heart filled with gratitude. Brother, mother, thank you for everything you're doing. As the conversation continues, Lin Hua approaches Soren, the man to whom her fate is now tied. She pleads, please don't let the adults hurt her. I just want her to live a healthy and happy life. Soren looks at her gently. I'll help, Lin Hua, as much as I can. After all, it's partly my fault the selection ceremony happened. Her heart trembles. Even the cold prince, Soren, is supporting her. Lin Hua's mother enters the room, her elegant presence commanding attention. She bows gracefully. Thank you again for coming, and for wishing to marry Lin Hua. Soren lowers his head. No thanks are necessary. Yes, I want Lin Hua to become my wife. His sincerity touches everyone in the room. Although the marriage was arranged for political reasons, true warmth is beginning to blossom. The mother smiles as she watches them. As a mother, I'm glad to see my daughter so happy. I even suspected my husband had forced you into this. Please don't worry, Soren replies. My wish is genuine. He then gently places a hand on Lin Hua's shoulder. She bites her lip, trying not to cry. Her cheeks flush with emotion. But when her mother says, Soren, please take care of Lin Hua, she's stubborn, but she's sweet. He seems to understand the gravity of the moment, and smiles. Of course, I'd like to think that only you know better than I do, just how wonderful she is. And finally, a tender farewell. Lin Hua is preparing to return to the palace. She kneels in front of little Shiyu, who says with the seriousness of an adult, when you go to sleep, don't forget to tuck yourself in, okay? Her eyes well up with tears. She realizes, the boy she had cared for had been caring for her too. She gently squeezes his hand. I will, Shiyu. In that parting gaze is pure affection. Everything that was lost is slowly being reborn. As care, as family, as trust. Amid the spring wind, gently swaying the petals of the sakura, a scene unfolded, full of trembling emotion. The white space around seemed frozen in a single moment, when little Quillen, still just a child in traditional attire, stood with tears in her eyes. Her face was tender, lips trembling, and her delicate hand wiped away the fear in her wide anxious gaze. Beside her, kneeling down and placing a calm palm on her head, was Soren, an embodiment of peace, warmth, and tenderness. His gentle gaze wrapped the girl in an invisible cloak of protection, and though he spoke no words, his deep soft voice seemed to say, I will protect you. Lin Hua, watching from nearby, felt a flutter deep in her chest. Tears shimmered in her eyes, not from sorrow, but from the sheer emotion of seeing how warmly and tenderly Soren had embraced the child, who now belonged to their family. Later, in a spacious hall, where soft light filtered through filigree-patterned windows, the future of Quillen was being discussed. Will Quillen have to marry Fullen? Lin Hua asked with worry in her voice, but the family had other concerns. For now, the most important thing was to give the girl a happy life. I just want her to feel happy, one of the young men replied with a tender smile, watching Quillen play with the other children, her happiness brief, but real. Soren approached Lin Hua later, as she quietly whispered through her tears, please, don't let the adults hurt her again. Her voice trembled like leaves in the spring breeze. His reply was quiet but full of resolve. I'll do everything I can. His hand brushed her cheek, like a promise, not of words, but of action. It was a moment of trust igniting between them. Her heart beat faster as she softly whispered his name, Soren. When Lin Hua's mother finally met Soren, her gaze was observant and reserved, but in the depths of her eyes, a glimmer of fondness sparkled. She sensed something in him, not just strength, but something deeper, warmer. His visit was unexpected, but sincere. I want to see what kind of woman the Chancellor's wife was, Soren said with a smile that carried something subtly enchanting. She smiled back, allowing herself joy for the first time. He truly wishes our daughter well, she thought. In her memory, a moment resurfaced, holding newborn Lin Hua in her arms. She had told her husband, if you're going to use her as a tool, then at least make sure she's happy. It hadn't been a demand, it was the plea of a mother who saw the long roads ahead in her daughter's life. And though Lin Hua's father had replied with his usual dry wit, there had been a glimmer in his eye. He understood how vital it was to temper ambition with humanity. The conversation between Lin Hua and her mother turned tender, even slightly comical. Soren, please take care of Lin Hua. She's stubborn, but sweet, her mother said, bowing deeply. Lin Hua blushed in embarrassment, and Soren stroked her hair gently, looking into her eyes. I think I'm second only to you in knowing all her good sides, he said. Her heart couldn't take it. It blazed, and her cheeks flushed. But how could this be happening right in front of her mother and her brother? Her thoughts spun. Her whole body trembled with embarrassment, and she tried to change the subject. Isn't it time for you to return to the palace? She blurted out. Her mother's laughter only intensified the moment. But Soren, as always, remained calm. Stay until the day after tomorrow. You need some rest. So sudden, but sincere. When the time came for farewell, Lin Hua, holding little Xiu, softly said, I'll be back soon. The boy nodded solemnly, like a true guardian. Her heart clenched. She had thought she was the one protecting him, but in truth, he had been protecting her all along. The quietness of their goodbye held more than any words could express. We'll play the erhu when I return, she promised. But just then, Xiu tugged on her sleeve, a simple gesture, yet so important, so full of meaning. Her voice quivered. He said nothing, but in his eyes, there was everything: care, farewell, and something beyond words. A silence louder than anything spoken. The golden afternoon sun filtered softly through the carved wooden windows of the Lu estate, painting long shadows upon the floor. The scent of jasmine tea mingled gently with the warmth of simmering dishes placed before them. Dressed in elegant robes, Lady Lu carried herself with a graceful dignity, her elaborate hair ornaments glinting faintly as she inclined her head in welcome. A composed smile touched her lips as her eyes settled on the guests before her. Once again, I thank you for coming, she said with genuine poise. Soren, the prince and royal envoy, bowed his head in respectful acknowledgement. Sorry for how sudden it was, he said, his voice even, but sincere. I'm grateful for your hospitality, even though the visit was only decided on a few days ago. Lady Lu offered a gentle smile. Thank you for your kind words. And more than that, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for offering to marry my dear daughter, Lin Hua. At that, Lin Hua's breath hitched faintly, caught between surprise and fluster, as her mother continued, her tone both grateful and cautiously maternal. As a mother, I'm sure it must have been difficult to accept such a sudden visit. Soren turned to Lin Hua, his gaze warm. I hope you'll forgive me for bringing Lin Hua here like this, he said, taking her hand softly under the table. His touch was protective, yet affectionate. It appears you've already heard from the Chancellor of the Right, Soren added, addressing Lady Lu. But yes, I'd like to take Lin Hua as my consort. Lady Lu nodded, and her expression softened. I am very pleased that you brought my daughter to see me like this. Her voice echoed against the delicately carved screens and silk-draped walls, as Lin Hua listened in silence, her emotions churning with complexity, torn between gratitude and guilt. It was also meant to allow me to meet face-to-face with my mother. Lin Hua thought silently, a fairly jam-packed schedule, but that's so very like Soren.
Shuren met Lady Lu's eyes. I wanted to see for myself what kind of woman the Chancellor of the Right's wife is, in the household where the strong-willed Lin Yue was raised. Lady Lu chuckled softly. covering her lips. "Oh my," she said with a glimmer of amusement. Lin Yue lowered her gaze, her cheeks coloring. "I've never thought of myself as strong-willed, but I suppose that's the impression Surin has of me." "Mother, why are you so happy?" Lin Yue asked, puzzled by the bright light in her mother's eyes, while Lady Lu replied, letting the words hang like petals in the air. "I must admit I carried some suspicions that perhaps Shuren had simply been overcome by my husband's ambition." Lin Yue's eyes widened. "Or perhaps a weakness of his to exploit," Lady Lu added, "resulting in him reluctantly agreeing to marry you." But Surin's voice rang clear. "Worry not, my desire for Lin Yue is genuine." Lady Lu paused for a long moment, and finally said, "I understand that now." Her lips curved into a serene smile as she turned to her daughter. "It's enough if you understand how I felt." Lin Yue bowed her head. "I'm sorry that I did whatever I pleased. I know my sudden entry into the palace caused you great concern. You already apologized profusely in your letters," her mother replied, her gaze lingering fondly on her daughter. "Besides, it appears that man kept his promise." A flicker of warmth passed between Lin Yue and Surin, then with no hesitation, Lady Lu turned her gaze elsewhere. "I know you and Shiying don't think of him as a good father. Naturally, as the Chancellor of the Right, he's also a troublesome and idiosyncratic man." Lin Yue and Shiying both blinked, surprised. "So frank," Lin Yue murmured, flustered. "But in truth," Lady Lu continued gently, "he doesn't have much of a lust for power. Lin Yu Xiaoming may seem greedy and ambitious to the public, but he just wants to involve himself in complicated matters. He believes ensuring the government and the Lu family thrive must be the most difficult job in all of Guanyin." She paused, eyes distant. "That's exactly why he finds it so interesting." Shuren bowed his head slightly. "I believe he has entrusted his daughter to me, because he believes I am worthy." Lady Lu's memory seemed to drift to a younger time. When Linfeng was born, she recalled, "I told him, if you're going to use our daughter as a tool, you must ensure that she will be happy." And so, amid cherry blossoms drifting on the spring wind, Lin Yu Xiaoming once held his newborn daughter, a sly smile on his lips. "Sounds good," he said. In his mind he mused, "Mixing in something as ambiguous as my daughter's happiness will make things all the more difficult and interesting." Back in the present, Lady Lu's gaze sharpened. "Shuren, please take good care of Lin Yue. She may be particularly strong-willed, but she is also quite adorable." Shuren smiled and patted Lin Yue's head, gently, affectionately. "Yeah, I know," he murmured. "I'd like to think I'm second only to you when it comes to knowing Lin Yue's good qualities." Lin Yue flushed bright red, trembling. "A punishment like this right in front of my mother? Everyone, including my brother, is here too." She panicked inwardly. "I need to change the topic," she blurted aloud. Don't you need to get back to the palace soon?" Shuren chuckled. "You must be sure to fulfill your duties as caretaker and as Surin's partner," Lady Lu added lightly, laughing behind her sleeve. Shuren turned to Lin Yue under the shade of a tiled roof. "But you can stay here until the day after tomorrow," he said softly, "since you won't be able to return home much after this." She blinked. "Huh. You'll be back at the palace soon enough, Lin Yue." She was given an extended break, unexpectedly. As the time of parting arrived, she knelt before little Ziyu. The child looked up at her with solemn eyes. "I'll be back soon," Lin Yue promised. "Listen," Ziyu said in a firm tone. "When you go to bed, you need to make sure you're nice and warm, okay?" Lin Yue smiled. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. "Yes, Ziyu," she replied. He hesitated. "You'd be lonely if you came back on your own, right? Should I have Lixiao come to get you?" "Definitely not," Lin Yue chuckled. "Having the head of the harem guards escort me back personally would be very odd indeed." "Thank you," she added more quietly. "But I'll be okay. The Lu family has guards too. For the last half year, I'd thought I was the one watching over Ziyu every day, but he was actually the one watching over me." She turned to the others one last time. "Let's play the erhu when I get back," she said gently. Then as she turned to go, a small tug at her sleeve made her pause. "Ziyu." His eyes were downcast, his grip tight. "Is he worried I won't return to the harem?" she wondered. "I'll return to your side, Ziyu. Please wait for me in the harem." He looked up. "Promise?" "Yes, I promise." "Okay." As he walked away he murmured under his breath, "See you later." Lin Yue watched him go. "Okay. Take care." Lin Yue came the small quiet voice one more time.
She turned. Her smile lingered in the morning light. The final farewell unfolds in the soft shimmer of dawn light, a moment caught between the warmth of family and the cool distance of duty. Linua, with a quiet sadness in her eyes, watches as the man she has come to care for, Prince Surin, mounts his horse, draped in noble garments that flutter like banners of fate in the morning breeze. His voice, calm yet laced with the faintest emotion, reaches her from atop the steed. "I'll be awaiting your return as well." She stiffens, her name caught in her throat. Surin, a whisper only the wind might carry. Her heart is unexpectedly heavy. From the moment he began having breakfast with Siyu each day, their lives had intertwined more deeply than she had realized. In those quiet morning meals, a closeness bloomed, not just between Surin and the child, but also between him and her. She remembers the glances, the casual warmth, the gentle routines. Now in this farewell, she feels their absence echo before it even begins. "I won't get to see him tomorrow," she thinks, staring after his fading silhouette. Behind her, he calls softly, "Linua." The way he says her name draws her gaze. He looks down at her with a gaze that holds steady affection, and though he doesn't say anything more, his presence lingers like the scent of spring after rain. The panels soften, the outlines blur. For a moment, the emotions are too full to put into words. This departure is not just a physical one, but a pause in the silent dialogue of two hearts slowly drawing closer. And even as distance grows between them, Linua realizes, she already misses him. The departure scene closes with a quiet yet deeply emotional tone, capturing the complex bond between Linua, Surin, and young Ziyu. As Surin mounts his horse, preparing to leave the Lu residence, he speaks with a calm but affectionate voice. "See you then." Linua, standing just behind the palanquin, and watching him from below, catches the last rays of the morning sun, reflecting off his long black hair. She responds softly, "Yeah." Her eyes linger on his figure. As he turns away, there's a flicker in her expression, a mix of warmth and sadness. The flutter of flower petals around them mirrors the emotions swirling silently in the air. The carriage begins to move, escorted by palace guards and Surin, riding ahead. Linua's gaze doesn't break. A close-up reveals her eyes, slightly wide, shimmering, not with tears but with the realization of how accustomed she's become to seeing him every day. Thoughts rush through her mind. I won't get to see him tomorrow. She watches their departure silently. The world around her is still and hushed, painted with the gentle glow of twilight. Her figure stands alone, facing the long road winding through the city. The grand roofs of the Lu estate frame the scene above, while falling petals continue to drift like quiet farewells in the wind. It is a scene not of dramatic separation, but of quiet change. One day apart, but enough to stir hearts that had grown used to constant nearness. The early spring air felt tender and cool, coaxing blossoms to unfold their silken petals in quiet celebration. The Lu family residence was filled with the subtle scent of blooming camellias, and soft rustling from the breeze, teasing the delicate branches. It was in this gentle atmosphere that Lord Surin stepped across the threshold of the Lu estate, his steps deliberate, eyes calm, and presence commanding. He smiled faintly, speaking with a tone as composed as morning mist. "I wanted to see for myself what kind of woman the Chancellor of the Right's wife is." There was a quiet pause. "Plus, I was curious to see the household where strong-willed Linua was raised." The subtle admiration in his voice sent a ripple of surprise through the lady of the house. She covered her mouth lightly, her lashes fluttering. "Oh my," she murmured, half amused, half moved. Lady Lu, Linua's mother, was a woman of grace, with serene eyes and gentle confidence. As she poured tea with practiced elegance, her thoughts whispered, "I've never thought of myself as strong-willed, but I suppose that's the impression Surin has of me." "Mother?" Linua asked, noting the faint glow of joy in her mother's expression. "Why are you so happy?" Lady Lu chuckled softly. "Well, I must admit, I carried some suspicion that perhaps Surin had simply been overcome by my husband's ambition, or had found some weakness to exploit, and reluctantly agreed to marry you." Surin's next words cut gently through the air, like a blade of honesty. "Worry not, my desire for Linua is genuine." A blush rose to Linua's cheeks, while in the corner of the room, her younger siblings wore expressions of dry, knowing exasperation. "That's definitely something father would do," they both thought simultaneously, eyebrows twitching. "Lady Lu," hearing the sincerity in Surin's tone, met his gaze with softened resolve. I understand that now. There was a quiet moment, and Linua finally bowed her head. I'm sorry that I did whatever I pleased. I know my sudden entry into the palace must have worried you deeply. Lady Lu gave her daughter a warm look. Besides, you already apologized profusely in your letters. It's enough if you understand how I felt. She turned her eyes to Surin, an approving calm glimmering in her gaze. It appears that man kept his promise. The conversation shifted, touched with humor. Linua blinked in surprise as her mother said plainly, naturally, as the Chancellor of the Right, he's a troublesome and idiosyncratic man to Surin. Huh? Linua blurted. I know you and Zilliang don't think of him as a good father. Yeah, Surin agreed without missing a beat. So frank, Linua thought, flustered. And yet the truth had its own layers. Liu Xiaoming may seem greedy and ambitious to the public, Lady Lu explained softly, but in reality, he doesn't have much of a lust for power. Her words held weight. He just wants to involve himself in complicated matters. He has said that ensuring the government and the Lu family thrive must be the most difficult job in all of Guangyan. That's exactly why he finds it so interesting. Linua tilted her head, overwhelmed by the complexity of her father's intentions. I understand, but I wish I didn't, she thought to herself. Lady Lu continued. It would be easy to govern if he were willing to act as a tyrant, but guiding the country toward a prosperous future is a laborious task. Surin looked thoughtful. I suppose you're right. She met his gaze. I believe he has entrusted his daughter to you, Surin, because he believes you to be worthy. Her words summoned a flashback. Lady Lu as a young mother, holding a newborn Linfeng. If you're going to use our daughter as a tool, you must ensure she will be happy, she had told her husband. Please judge from all perspectives and find her a good husband. Back in the present, she nodded. So Surin, please take good care of Linua. She may be strong-willed, but she's also quite adorable. Linua flushed as Surin patted her head gently. Yeah, I know, he said with a grin. I'd like to think I'm second only to you when it comes to knowing Linua's good qualities. Linua, overwhelmed, buried her face in her hands. What did I do to deserve a punishment like this, right in front of my mother? And my brother too. She glanced up and saw everyone watching. I need to change the topic. Don't you need to get back to the palace soon? She asked desperately. I knew, she added quickly in response to her mother's teasing. But Surin smiled. Actually, you can stay until the day after tomorrow, since you won't be able to return home much after this. Linua blinked. Huh? Narration filled in the pause. I was given an extended break, unexpectedly. They stood together in the courtyard. Behind them, the palace rose like a mountain of jade and gold, its spires brushing the sky. The moment of parting had come. I'll be back soon, Linua said, kneeling to speak to Ziyu, the young boy she had watched over for so long. Listen, the boy said with surprising gravity. When you go to bed, make sure you're nice and warm, okay? Her smile trembled. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. Yes, Ziyu. He looked at her seriously. Would you be lonely coming back on your own? Should I send Lixiao to come get you? Thank you, but I'll be okay. The Lu family has guards too, Linua replied gently. For the last half year, I'd thought I was the one watching over Ziyu, but he was actually the one watching over me. She rose, brushing her long hair over her shoulder. Let's play the erhu when I get back, she promised. The boy said nothing, but as Linua turned to leave, she felt a tug on her sleeve. Ziyu, promise, I'll return to your side, Ziyu, she said, bending down to meet his eyes. Please wait for me in the harem. Yes, I promise. He gave a tiny nod. Okay, see you later, he called, already turning away. As she watched him go, her heart clenched gently. Surin, I'll be awaiting your return as well, Surin called from horseback. Linua stared after him, suddenly realizing, we've been seeing each other nearly every day, ever since Surin began having breakfast with Ziyu. I won't get to see him tomorrow. Her reverie broke when Surin turned. Linua, yeah, see you then. He rode off, and Linua watched until the last of his silhouette disappeared through the grand gates of the Lu estate. Petals danced through the air, as silence returned. My Lottie, a voice called cheerfully behind her. She turned to see a girl, rushing through the courtyard, bright-eyed, full of energy. Meow? The reunion brought warmth. The girl slipped and tumbled into the entrance with a loud thud. Meow-oo, aha, my lady, the girl beamed from the floor. Long time no see. And just like that, the heavy emotion of parting melted into the joy of return. The warm light of morning filtered through the gauze-covered windows, casting soft beams across the elegant hall. Linua stood silently before her mother, her gaze lowered, but her voice steady. Mother, she began, I know my sudden entry into the palace caused you great concern. She bowed her head deeply, shadows falling over her face like penance. I'm sorry that I did whatever I pleased. Her mother, draped in regal finery and adorned with jeweled hairpins that chimed gently with each movement, looked at her daughter with a measured calm. It's enough if you understand how I felt, she replied, her voice holding no resentment, only quiet grace. Besides, you already apologized profusely in your letters. Linua's heart, tense until that moment, relaxed. The tightness in her chest loosened, and when Surin reached out to her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, it felt like a bridge of understanding had formed between them. It appears that man kept his promise, her mother added thoughtfully, watching them both with a faint smile. As Linua and Surin sat together at a table laid with steaming plates of roasted meat, fruits and tea, their bond felt stronger than it had before. Her mother's words carried weight. She recognized Surin's sincerity. Conversation turned to Lu Xiaoming, Linua's father, and the Chancellor of the Right. Her mother acknowledged the complex relationship the family had with him. Naturally, as the Chancellor, he's also a troublesome and idiosyncratic man to Surin, she said with a sigh. I know you and Siyun don't think of him as a good father. Yeah, Surin responded simply. Immediately, no hesitation, Linua flushed. So frank, she blurted. Her mother continued, her voice wistful. Lu Xiaoming may seem greedy and ambitious to the public, but in reality, he doesn't have much of a lust for power. She paused, folding her hands over a flowered sleeve. He just wants to involve himself in complicated matters. To ensure the government and the Lu family thrive must be the most difficult job in all of Guangyin, she said. That's exactly why he finds it so interesting. Even Linua couldn't deny the truth in those words. I understand, she murmured, but I wish I didn't. As the conversation drifted, Surin sat beside her, his profile framed against the backdrop of silken curtains and fading daylight. Her mother's expression softened once more. I believe he has entrusted his daughter to you, Surin, because he believes you to be worthy. She recalled a memory from years ago, when Lin Feng was born. Her mother had confronted her husband. If you're going to use our daughter as a tool, she had said fiercely, you must ensure that she will be happy. And he had replied with a smirk, cradling the tiny infant, mixing in something as ambiguous as my daughter's happiness will make things all the more difficult and interesting. Linua's heart twisted at the memory. I hope you won't hate him for that, her mother told her now. No doubt he doesn't understand people's hearts very well, Linua admitted. That's the biggest problem, mother. Still, her mother smiled and chuckled knowingly. Surin, she said at last, turning to the young man who stood tall beside her daughter. Please take good care of Linua. She may be particularly strong-willed, but she is also quite adorable. Surin reached out and gently patted Linua's head. Her eyes widened, her heart pounding at the sudden gesture. Yeah, I know, he said softly. I'd like to think I'm second only to you when it comes to knowing Linua's good qualities. Her face flushed scarlet. What did I do to deserve a punishment like this in front of my mother? She thought desperately. Her mother, however, laughed brightly. How nice, Linua. The room shimmered with warmth and embarrassment, as Linua changed the topic in a panic. Don't you need to get back to the palace soon? I was given an extended break unexpectedly, Surin replied, his expression calm. You can stay here until the day after tomorrow. I'll be back at the palace soon enough. Linua, he added, his voice gentle against the backdrop of a painted sky. The next morning arrived too quickly. Standing before the palace gates, Linua knelt to bid farewell to Jiyu, the little boy who had been like a shadow to her these past months. Listen, he said, mimicking her usual tone. When you go to bed, you need to make sure you're nice and warm, okay? Linua smiled warmly, her heart swelling. Yes, Jiyu, I'll be back soon. She remembered how she thought she had been watching over him, but truly, he had been the one watching over her. Let's play the erhu when I get back, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. As she turned to leave, Yu tugged at her sleeve. Promise. She leaned in and held his hands. Yes, I promise. Yes, I promise. Please wait for me in the harem. Okay. Her heart ached as she walked away, Surin's farewell still lingering in her ears. See you then. And so Ling Yue stood, watching the carriage and riders fade into the horizon under a cascade of falling petals, her hair catching the wind like trailing silk. Back at the harem, a familiar voice broke through her wistful thought. My laddie? Nayo? The cheerful girl barreled into her arms, tripping over her own feet. Aha! My lady, long time no see. Ling Yue smiled, tears pricking at her eyes. It felt like a warm embrace from her past. They chatted joyfully. Everyone's been doing well? Ling Yue asked. Yep, Mom and I were worried though. I couldn't believe it when you decided to work in the harem, Nayo said with wide eyes. I was quite surprised myself, Ling Yue replied. Nayo bounced up. I'll help you change before dinner. I think these clothes are fine actually. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. Nayo I'll change. I'll change. Ling Yue gave in with a sigh and a smile. A soft golden morning light filtered through silk curtains, wrapping the spacious chamber in a warm, gentle glow. The atmosphere buzzed with a quiet sense of reconciliation and reflection. Ling Yue sat silently, eyes lowered, heart beating against the walls of her chest, as if trying to climb its way out. Surin's hand gently reached out to steady hers. His voice low and warm. Besides, he said smiling softly, you already apologized profusely in your letters. It's enough if you understand how I felt. A small breath escaped her lips, part relief, part disbelief. The weight of guilt had sat on her chest for far too long. And now, to feel the warmth of forgiveness lifted, even slightly, was like the sky had cracked open a little. In the background, a regal figure watched, adorned in splendid robes, with long pale hair swept elegantly to the side. His serene gaze observed the closeness blooming between them and he murmured, it appears that man kept his promise. Later, while enjoying a quiet meal beneath curtains that danced in the breeze, conversation turned more personal. The regal man, Lu Xiaoming, spoke with unfiltered candor. I know you and Shi Ying don't think of him as a good father, he said. Huh? Ling Yue blinked in surprise, then again as Surin answered without hesitation. Yeah, so frank, she gasped, cheeks burning with embarrassment. But Lu Xiaoming's expression did not shift. His elegance was undeterred by blunt truths. Lu Xiaoming may seem greedy and ambitious to the public, but in reality, he doesn't have much of a lust for power, he continued calmly. She tried to deny it. You're wrong about that. But the words rang hollow, fading into silence as Lu Xiaoming's composed voice filled the room again. It's the truth. He just wants to involve himself in complicated matters. He has said that ensuring the government, and the Lu Xiaomi, thrive must be the most difficult job in all of Guangyin. That's exactly why he finds it so interesting. Silence followed, thoughtful and heavy. Later still, the soft notes of melancholy re-emerged. Ling Yue's gaze dropped again as she murmured, I understand, but I wish I didn't. The Lu Xiaomi was already the most powerful of the 5 great clans, and nurturing it further while upholding morality, rather than ruling as a tyrant, was a daunting path. Her thoughts echoed quietly, so allowing it to flourish even more will be truly difficult. It was a moment of understanding, painful, reluctant, but real. In another memory, a woman held a swaddled infant, her face serious. If you're going to use our daughter as a tool, she said sternly, you must ensure that she will be happy. Her partner, accepting the child in his arms, only smiled faintly. Sounds good. His eyes glinted with calculation and affection alike. Mixing in something as ambiguous as my daughter's happiness will make things all the more difficult and interesting. This past, now lived on in the present. Surin had been entrusted with Ling Yue not out of convenience, but belief that he was worthy. Surin, Lu Xiaoming said quietly, please take good care of Ling Yue. She may be particularly strong-willed, but she is also quite adorable. Surin reached out and gently ruffled Ling Yue's hair, his voice fond. Yeah, I know. I'd like to think I'm second only to you when it comes to knowing Ling Yue's good qualities. Her heart skipped again. The dump. His hand lingered atop her head, light and sincere. and every nerve in her body. What did I do to deserve a punishment like this right in front of my mother and my brother? She looked around the room. Everyone was watching. The blush deepened, her mind screaming for escape. I need to change the topic. Don't you need to get back to the palace soon? Her mother chuckled softly, elegantly sipping from her teacup. You must be sure to fulfill your duties as caretaker, and as Surin's partner. I knew us, but then, to Li Nua's surprise, Surin whispered gently. You can stay here, until the day after tomorrow. She blinked. I was given an extended break unexpectedly, she realized. Since you won't be able to return home much after this, you'll be back at the palace soon enough, Li Nua. It was a simple gift, that moment, a pocket of time. At the gate, you clutched her robe with his small hand, eyes wide and hopeful. I'll be back soon, she told him, and his eyes shimmered with a familiar light. When you go to bed you need to make sure you're nice and warm, okay? Yes, she replied with a warm smile. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. She knelt to say goodbye, but in her heart, the realization settled for all these months. She thought she was the one caring for him, yet it was he who'd quietly watched over her. As she prepared to leave, her voice choked slightly. Her voice choked slightly. Let's play the erhu when I get back. Promise? Yes, I promise. I'll return to your side. Okay, he nodded. She turned to leave, but heard his voice call after her one last time. Li Nua's. She stopped, turned back. Okay, take care. Surin, already mounted on his horse, called out over his shoulder. I'll be awaiting your return as well. Her heart wavered. That reminds me, ever since Surin began having breakfast with we've been seeing each other nearly every day. I won't get to see him tomorrow. Li Nua's. His voice came, softer this time. Tears glimmered at the edge of her lashes as she watched him ride off, petals swirling in the spring wind, blending with the ache in her chest. See you then. And just like that, he was gone. She stood frozen long after his figure disappeared, the horizon stretching on, petals falling gently at her feet. A voice broke her daze, cheerful, loud and full of energy.
My latte. She turned just in time to see a blur of motion. Meow. Rushing forward. Meow. 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 Oh. Meow. Oh. Oh. The poor girl tripped and skidded across the polished floor. Aha! My lady. Meow. Beamed as if nothing had happened. Long time no see. Their reunion was warm, playful. Meow. Daughter of Li Nua's wet nurse and her childhood companion had joined the harem. The surprise was mutual, and they quickly fell back into the rhythm of laughter and teasing. I couldn't believe it when you suddenly decided to work in the harem. Meow. Said. I was surprised myself. I'll help you change your clothes before dinner, she chirped. Li Nua blinked. Huh? I think these clothes are fine actually. I'll change. I'll change. I'll change. She sighed as Meow sparkled with joy. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. Soon enough, Li Nua was draped in elegant robes, adorned with floral hairpieces and jewels. Her reflection stared back at her, radiant and nostalgic. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home. Thanks, she whispered, and then her eyes landed on something by the wall, an erhu. That erhu is, yep, that's the one back from the workshop, Meow said. I'm glad it could be fixed. Before Li Nua could fully sink into the rush of memories, a soft voice interrupted. Can I join you? Peeking through the door was a small girl, Quillan. Lady Kuai. No, Quillan, Li Nua corrected with a kind smile. Please come in. As Meow excused herself, Li Nua faced the girl. A new thread in her story was about to begin. The hall was quiet, dappled with sunlight, and shaded by the delicate veil of falling flower petals. Shorin sat beside the tea table, thoughtful, with Li Nua and the others gathered. The talk had turned serious, and Li Nua could sense the weight behind every word spoken. I understand, Shorin murmured with a bitter smile, but I wish I didn't. The atmosphere thickened, and even the usually aloof companions paused. One turned to him with a simple, surprised, huh? In the pause, a single name floated gently into the forefront of thought. Lu family. Already mighty among the 5 great houses, was difficult to steer even by those within it. A tyrant might easily tighten their grip, but to rule with a soft guiding hand, to nurture, not dominate, was exhausting. It would be easy to govern if he were willing to act as a tyrant, a soft voice echoed, accompanied by the fluttering image of delicate irises blooming in dusk light. But guiding the country toward a prosperous future is a laborious task. The mood shifted as the conversation turned to Linwa's father and his hopes. I believe he entrusted his daughter to you, Shorin, because he believes you to be worthy. The scene flickered, back to a memory. A woman, cradling a newborn, had spoken with composed fierceness to her husband. If you're going to use our daughter as a tool, she had said, you must ensure that she will be happy. Please judge from all perspectives, and find her a good husband. Her gaze had been steel wrapped in silk. Now, years later, the man had smiled, a rare warmth in his features, as he looked at the infant again. Sounds good, he chuckled. Mixing in something as ambiguous as my daughter's happiness will make things all the more difficult and interesting. That warmth, like an ember, still glowed in Shorin's chest. Back in the present, he looked toward Linwa and whispered, yeah, I know, I'd like to think I'm second only to you when it comes to knowing Linwa's good qualities. His hand reached out, ruffling Linwa's hair softly, an act so gentle and sudden, that Linwa froze, cheeks flushed and heart fluttering wildly. What did I do to deserve this? In front of my mother, in front of my brother too. Her mind spiraled. I need to change the topic. Don't you need to get back to the palace soon? She blurted, flailing slightly. Her mother only chuckled. You must be sure to fulfill your duties as caretaker, and as Shorin's partner. But Shorin smiled faintly. You can stay here until the day after tomorrow, since you won't be able to return home much after this. Linwa blinked. I was given an extended break unexpectedly. As she stood beneath the layered roof of her home, the morning sun turning the tiles golden, she turned to Jiyu, her little brother who had become her world these past months. I'll be back soon, she promised. Jiyu nodded solemnly, echoing the words she had often spoken to him. When you go to bed, you need to make sure you're nice and warm, okay? Linwa's heart warmed. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. Yes, Jiyu. He glanced away shyly, then offered her a quiet, thank you, but his proud posture softened when he admitted, you'd be lonely if you came back on your own, right? Should I have Lixiao come to get you? I'll be okay, Linwa replied gently. The Lu family has guards too. Her thoughts flickered back to the days behind her. For the last half year, I'd thought I was the one watching over Jiyu every day, but he was actually the one watching over me. Before departing, Linwa knelt beside him. Let's play the erhu when I get back. His small hand tugged her sleeve. Jiyu, promise. I'll return to your side, Jiyu, she said, her voice softer than the wind that stirred the cherry blossoms. Please wait for me in the harem. Promise. Yes, I promise. They parted under a snowfall of petals, delicate and bright. Linwa watched the palanquin roll away. Shorin mounted beside it, his hair dancing in the wind. She whispered only once more, barely audible, Shorin, I'll be awaiting your return as well, he replied, without looking back, as if he already knew. That reminds me, ever since Shorin began to have breakfast with Jiyu, we've been seeing each other nearly every day. I won't get to see him tomorrow. Linwa. Shorin had looked back once, eyes soft, voice low. That moment stayed with her. When she finally stepped back into the palace, the weight of her departure lingered like perfume on a silk sleeve. My laddie, a familiar voice cried. Oh my oh, Linwa beamed. They collided like shooting stars, laughter echoing in the long halls. It's really been a long time. Have you been doing well? Linwa asked, offering a hand. Yeah, I've been great. Mao grinned. Mao grinned. Mao, her wet nurse's daughter, same age, same warmth, now working in the harem. The chatter turned fast and cheerful. I'll help you change your clothes before dinner, Mao announced. Huh? I think these clothes are fine actually. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life, she beamed, already fussing with fabric. I'll change. Later, adorned in elegant dress and with hair woven like spring's first blossom, Linwa stood before the mirror. Thanks, she said. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home. Her eyes wandered to the corner. That erhu is, yep, that's the one back from the workshop, Mao said. I'm glad it could be fixed. Just then a soft knock. Can I join you? Asked a shy voice. Lady Kui. No, Quilin. Please come in. The younger girl stepped inside. She was graceful, dressed in florals, eyes wide with cautious joy. Have you gotten used to living in the Lu household yet?
Linhua asked. Quillen nodded vigorously. It's really fun here. I get to play with Phylong every day. And I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. Huh. I'm so happy to hear that. If you ask mother to let you learn the erhu soon, I'm sure my old teacher will come for you. I want to try playing one soon. I believe Phylong has an erhu made for children. Silence. Quillen hesitated. Well, Phylong, Linhua tilted her head. He broke it, Quillen admitted. The air froze. He broke it? The story unfolds with delicate warmth and steady emotional weight. As Linhua prepares to leave her family home once again, she stands gracefully cloaked in the layered silks of her station, gently cradling the infant in her arms, her own daughter, while the patriarch of the family, Lord Li, observes quietly. The child coos softly, fingers curling and uncurling in the folds of her brocade blanket, oblivious to the charged atmosphere. Lord Li's gaze softens as he speaks, mixing in something as ambiguous as my daughter's happiness will make things all the more difficult and interesting. In his hands, Linhua rests for a moment longer, a precious jewel in his eyes, wrapped in uncertainty and hope. Later, within the vibrant and intricately carved halls of the palace, Lady Li speaks to her daughter with care and fondness. Making you an empress candidate, all that was done with the intent of bringing you happiness. She sighs gently. I hope you won't hate him for that. Linhua listens, eyes lowered, an unspoken weight behind her smile. There's no doubt he doesn't understand people's hearts very well, she responds. That's the biggest problem though, mother. Her mother chuckles behind her sleeve. He. I questioned his approach too, for sure. Then comes a tender moment between Lord Shorin and Lady Linhua, filled with unspoken emotions. Shorin gently pets Linhua's hair, his touch stirring a loud fluttering in her chest. Her thoughts race. A punishment like this right in front of my mother. What did I do to deserve? Her mind spins as she notices her brother is there too. She screams inwardly. Everyone is here. I need to change the topic. Flushing a bright crimson, she stammers. Don't you need to get back to the palace soon? Her mother watches with delight. How nice, Linhua. Be sure to fulfill your duties as Shorin's partner. I knew. Linhua stammers in panic. But Shorin calmly leans closer and murmurs. You won't be able to return home much after this, but you can stay until the day after tomorrow. She looks at him, surprised, as his voice continues in her mind. You'll be back at the palace soon enough, Linhua. The narration picks up. I was given an extended break unexpectedly. When the time comes to depart, Linhua stands before little Ziyu, who watches her with the dignified seriousness of a child, trying hard to act grown up. Listen, he instructs, repeating words he's surely heard many times before. When you go to bed, make sure you're nice and warm, okay? Linhua smiles warmly, her heart aching. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. Yes, Ziyu. Their conversation continues, Ziyu fretting with concern, wanting her return to be safe. Linhua reassures him, explaining that the Li family has guards. But in her thoughts she realizes, for the last half year, I'd thought I was the one watching over Ziyu, but he was actually the one watching over me. With the family gathered to see her off, Linhua turns to Ziyu one more time. Let's play the erhu when I get back. He tugs at her sleeve just as she turns away. Ziyu. There's silence, but his gaze holds hers steadily. Then comes the question, so soft and heavy. Promise? Linhua kneels, placing her hands over his gently. Yes, I promise. I'll return to your side, Ziyu. Please wait for me in the harem. His voice is subdued. Okay. As he walks away, Linhua calls softly, Ziyu. He pauses and glances back. See you later. She watches him go, heart weighted with affection. Then turning, she locks eyes with Shorin, who is already on horseback. He meets her gaze from beneath long dark lashes. I'll be awaiting your return as well, Shorin, she thinks. That reminds me, ever since he started having breakfast with Ziyu, we've been seeing each other nearly every day. I won't get to see him tomorrow. He notices her distant look. Linhua, her eyes tremble. See you then. He nods once. Yeah, and with the fading sound of hooves and wooden wheels, they part. Linhua watches the procession disappear into the golden light of late afternoon, petals drifting like snow in the air. Back in the palace, a familiar voice rings out. My lady. She turns, surprised. Meow? The young maid barrels toward her, and promptly trips. Meow? Ooh. Still smiling widely from the floor, Meow beams. Aha. my lady, long time no see. The two reconnect, laughter and tears brimming in their reunion. It's really been a long time, have you been doing well? Lanwa asks. Yep, Meow says with a grin. I've been great. They catch up quickly. Meow, the daughter of Lanwa's old wet nurse, is now a court servant, and she shares all the updates with vibrant energy. I couldn't believe it when you decided to work in the harem. Mom and I were so worried. Their conversation turns to changing clothes, and Meow insists on helping her dress before dinner. Her eyes sparkle. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. Reluctantly, Lanwa agrees. I'll change. Dressed in full finery, hair adorned in blossoms, Lanwa admires her reflection. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home. At that moment, she spots something familiar resting near the corner. Him? That or who is? Meow nods. Yep, that's the one back from the workshop. I'm glad it could be fixed. Then a small voice peeks from behind the curtain. Can I join you? Quillen, Lanwa greets with a gentle smile. Please come in. As they talk, Lanwa asks softly, have you gotten used to living in the Lee household yet? Quillen nods enthusiastically. It's really fun here. I get to play with Felong every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. I'm so happy to hear that. I want to try playing erhu soon. Well, Felong has an erhu made for children. He doesn't have interest in it. If you borrowed that, you could start right away. But Quillen hesitates. He broke it. Lanwa's eyes widen. He broke it? Quillen nods. He said, I was swinging it like a wooden sword, and it broke. Everyone was so mad. Lanwa covers her face, exasperated but amused. I can imagine perfectly what happened. Foster mother said she'd have one made for me. In that case, Lanwa moves to retrieve her own instrument. How about playing this one? Quillen gasps. Can I really? Come here. I'll hold it for you. Hold the bow like this. In the hushed serenity of a traditional inner court, framed by screens and wooden corridors, bathed in soft daylight, a gentle yet pivotal scene unfolds. Lady Lanwa bows her head gracefully, her mother's words lingering in the air like falling petals. Please take good care of Lanwa, the elder says to Soren, her voice both warm and weighted with trust. She may be particularly strong-willed, but she is also quite adorable. There's a faint smile beneath her regal composure, but the seriousness in her gaze is unmistakable. Soren's expression softens. With an affectionate chuckle, he brushes back Lanwa's hair with his fingers and murmurs, yeah, I know. I'd like to think I'm second only to you when it comes to knowing Lanwa's good qualities. Lanwa's eyes widen, her heart racing at the unexpected petting. The intimacy flusters her in front of the others, her mother, her brother, even court retainers. What did I do to deserve a punishment like this right in front of my mother? Lanwa's thoughts race, cheeks burning crimson. Everyone, including my brother, is here too. She panics internally, while trying to keep composure. The scene draws a ripple of reaction. Her brother stares, the others chuckle quietly behind their fans, and her mother, graceful as ever, simply smiles. I need to change the topic. Lanwa blurts, don't you need to get back to the palace soon? Her mother giggles softly behind her sleeve. How nice, Lanwa. You must be sure to fulfill your duties as caretaker, and as Soren's partner. I knew. Lanwa groans, her face still aflame, but her worries are soon brushed away by Soren's kind voice. Since you won't be able to return home much after this, you can stay until the day after tomorrow. The breeze carries the warmth of that moment, and Lanwa, surprised, lets the words sink in. I was given an extended break unexpectedly, she thinks. I'll be back at the palace soon enough, he reminds her, as they walk under the soft blue sky tinged with parting sunlight. The time for goodbyes comes with the sweetness of family. As Soren prepares to depart, the little one, Ziyu, steps forward with innocent wisdom. Listen, he says, when you go to bed you need to make sure you're nice and warm, okay? Lanwa smiles gently. Yes, Ziyu. His advice mimics her own past guidance, making her heart swell with affection. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. You'd be lonely if you came back on your own, right? He asks with a pout. Should I have Lixiao come to get you? No thank you, she laughs. But I'll be okay. The Liu family has guards too. She kneels before him, meeting his eyes. Let's play the erhu when I get back. But before she rises her hand is tugged. Ziyu stares up at her silently. Ziyu, Promise. Lanehua cups his hands in hers. I'll return to your side, Jiyu. Please wait for me in the harem. Okay. The boy's face softens, though he hides it quickly with a turn of his head. See you later. Lanehua watches him go. His small back retreats up the stairs, stiff and noble, and painfully dear to her. He's worried I won't return, she realizes, but I will. At the gate, Soren mounts his steed. His hair flutters like a banner in the wind. I'll be awaiting your return as well, he says with his signature composed smile. Lanehua's heart stirs. Soren. They had been sharing quiet breakfasts lately with Jiyu, a routine growing so familiar it rooted itself in her day. I won't get to see him tomorrow, she thinks, melancholy blooming in her chest. Lanehua, Soren calls as she lingers in thought. She blinks and smiles up at him. Yeah. He nods. See you then. The petals of early plum blossoms drift past her cheek as the procession departs. Lanehua watches in stillness, her figure framed against a blooming branch, as she whispers in her heart, until next time. She returns to the inner quarters with a faint smile. My lady, a cheerful voice calls out. Meow. Lanehua brightens at the familiar face of her friend rushing toward her. With a tumble and a comical slip, Meow stumbles, calling, Meow. Lanehua rushes to her side, giggling. You're as hasty as ever. Are you okay? Yep. Meow beams up. It's really been a long time. Have you been doing well? Yeah. I've been great. A heartwarming reunion continues, as they chat. So everyone's been doing well? I couldn't believe it when you suddenly decided to work in the harem. Meow confesses. Mom and I were so worried. Lanehua chuckles. I was quite surprised myself. I'll help you change your clothes before dinner. Meow declares. Huh? I think these are fine. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. Meow sparkles, practically radiating. Overwhelmed, Lanehua throws up her hands in surrender. I'll change. I'll change. Moments later, Lanehua appears transformed. Her traditional attire is lavish, delicate flowers woven into her hair. Thanks, she says, catching her reflection. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home. Then her eyes fall upon the erhu placed nearby. Is that? Yep. That's the one back from the workshop. Meow explains. I'm glad it could be fixed. Just then a soft knock. Can I join you? A sweet little face peeks in. Lady Kui. No, Quilin. Lanehua says with fond surprise. Please come in. I'll leave you two alone. Meow says, stepping out, sitting down with Quilin. Lanehua asks gently. Have you gotten used to living in the Lu household yet? Quilin fidgets, then smiles. It's really fun here. I get to play with Filong every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. I'm so happy to hear that. Lanehua says, eyes soft. If you ask mother to let you learn the erhu soon, my old teacher will come for you. I want to try playing one soon. Filong has an erhu made for children. You could begin right away. Well, Quilin's expression darkens. Filong, he broke it. He broke it. Lanehua repeats, stunned. Quilin, flustered, mimics. I was swinging it like a wooden sword, and it broke. Lanehua sighs, already picturing the chaos. I can imagine perfectly what happened, but foster mother said she'd have one made for me. In that case, Lanehua says, rising. How about playing this one? Quilin's eyes shine. Can I really? Come here, I'll hold it for you. As music fills the room, time seems to pause. Lanehua sits behind Quilin, helping her guide the bow gently across the strings. The melody is unpolished but sweet, filled with emotion and new beginnings. This is the erhu that Quilin broke before the Empress selection ceremony. Lanehua thinks. She still remembers what I told her, and handles it with great care. The bowstrings aren't taut, but this clumsy timbre is cute too. It sounds so good. Quilin gasps. Yes, you're very skilled. Let's play some more. Lanehua suggests. Yes, big sister. I never thought that Quilin would become my little sister. Lanehua muses, heart full. Elsewhere, under a moonlit sky, in the stately governmental palace, Shorin sits amid scrolls and silence. A man enters swiftly. Shorin, he says solemnly. I have something urgent to report. But far from the tension building there, laughter echoes at the Lu estate. Children tug at Lanehua's sleeves. Sis, let's catch bugs next. How about a board game? She suggests. Let's make mud balls. You sure are popular. Lanwa, says a voice from behind. She turns, sighing, and the day continues, filled with warmth, family, and the quiet certainty of her promise to return, and to keep the threads of this new life, gently and dearly, in hand. The setting opens in a beautifully adorned courtyard, basking in the warmth of the sun. Lanwa stands trembling under the gentle but humiliating gesture of Soren, who affectionately pats her head, as if she were a disobedient child, all while her family, including her mother and brother, silently observe the scene. Her mind spirals in embarrassment. A punishment like this, in front of my mother. What did I do to deserve this? She can feel every pair of eyes on her, the weight of the moment causing her cheeks to flush deeply. With a shaky breath, Lanwa snaps out of her stunned state. I need to change the topic, she cries in her thoughts, grasping for any distraction. Don't you need to get back to the palace soon? She blurts, eyes wide. Soren smirks. I knew, he retorts, clearly not in a hurry. Her mother, regal and calm, watches them with amusement. How nice, Lanwa, she says with a light chuckle. You must be sure to fulfill your duties as caretaker, and as Soren's partner. The moment melts away into something softer. Outside, Soren walks with Lanwa along the palace's sunlit path. The sky is crisp and clear, casting long shadows from the roof's elegant eaves. But you can stay here until the day after tomorrow, he says gently, since you won't be able to return home much after this. I was given an extended break unexpectedly, Lanwa narrates inwardly, watching the wind tug gently at Soren's robes. His words make her blink. Huh? She whispers. You'll be back at the palace soon enough, Lanwa. Their farewell comes too soon. Soren is poised to leave on horseback, accompanied by an escort. Lanwa kneels before a small group of children and family, including the boys. His tiny voice calls after her. Listen, when you go to bed, you need to make sure you're nice and warm, okay? It brings a tender smile to her lips. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. Yes, Ziyu, she answers softly, trying not to tear up. The little boy hesitates. You'd be lonely if you came back on your own, right? Should I have Lixiao come to get you? She shakes her head gently. Definitely not. Having the head of the harem guards escorting me back personally would be very odd indeed. But he was actually the one watching over me. Lanwa realizes in silence, her heart swelling. For the last half year, I'd thought I was the one watching over Ziyu. She kneels down and brushes the child's hair with her fingers. Let's play the erhu when I get back, she promises, and his little eyes widen with hope. But as she rises to leave, she feels the tug at her sleeve. Ziyu, she says startled. His gaze is quiet, pleading. Is he worried I won't return to the harem? Lanwa's heart aches. I'll return to your side, Ziyu, she vows, gripping his small hand. Please wait for me in the harem. He stares up at her, solemn. Promise. A gust of wind rustles the air between them. Yes, I promise. Okay. They part. Petals fall as the convoy rolls out from the estate. Soren, atop his horse, turns to offer one last glance. See you then. Yeah, she answers softly. Lanwa stands in place, watching the cart disappear into the vibrant palace streets. Back at the harem, chapter 23 begins. To the harem, her maid Mao comes rushing out with an excited cry. My laddie. Lanwa turns, and her face lights up in surprise. Mao. The girl barrels forward and crashes to the floor, in an excited heap. Aha, my lady, long time no see. She beams, unfazed by her fall. You're as hasty as ever. Are you okay? Yep, they share heartfelt greetings. Lanwa smiles, her heart lighter. So everyone has been doing well? She asks. Yep, I've been great, Mao replies. Mao is my wet nurse's daughter. She's the same age as me. I couldn't believe it when you suddenly decided to work in the harem. Mao continues. Mom and I were so worried. Lanwa looks down at her clothes. I think these are fine actually. No way. I'll help you change before dinner, Mao declares, her face lighting up with joy. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. A little overwhelmed, Lanwa groans. I'll change. I'll change. Later, Lanwa emerges adorned in rich embroidery and ornate floral hairpieces. All done, Mao announces proudly. Thanks, Lanwa replies. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home. Her eyes drift to a familiar object. The erhu. Mao, That Erhu is, yes, Mayo confirms, that's the one back from the workshop. I'm glad it could be fixed. Just then, a shy voice peeks in through the doorway.
Can I join you? Linhua turns and smiles. Lady Kui no, Quilon. Please come in. Quilon steps in. Beaming. I get to play with Filong every day and I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. It's really fun here. Linhua asks softly. Have you gotten used to living in the Lu household yet? Quilon nods. If you ask mother to let you learn the Erhu soon, I'm sure my old teacher will come for you. I want to try playing one soon, Quilon says excitedly. Linhua leans in. Filong has an Erhu made for children. If you borrowed that, then Quilon goes silent. What's the matter? Quilon gulps. Well, Filong, he broke it. He broke it? She recalls the memory, mimicking Filong's words. I was swinging it like a wooden sword and it broke. Linhua sighs. I can imagine perfectly what happened. Foster mother told me she'd have one made for me. In that case, Linhua stands, lifting the Erhu she'd been staring at. How about playing this one? Can I really? Yes. Come here. I'll hold it for you. Hold the bow like this. The two of them play together. Linhua's arms wrap gently around the girl. Her touch is gentle and guiding. The sounds are clumsy but charming, and the music begins to flow. This is the Erhu that Quilon broke before the Empress selection ceremony. She still remembers what I told her then, and is handling the Erhu with great care. The bowstrings are not as taut as a beginner's Erhu, but this clumsy unstable timber is cute too. It sounds so good. Quilon beams. Yes, you're very skilled. Linhua smiles. I never thought that Quilon would become my little sister. Let's play some more. Yes. Big sister. Meanwhile, in the governmental palace the air is colder under moonlight. Soren sits in contemplation. A figure enters the chamber. Soren, I have something urgent to report. Back at the Lu estate, the children are cheerful. Sis, let's catch bugs next. Linhua chuckles. It's already getting cold. There aren't many bugs right now. Let's make mud balls. How about a board game like Shuguroku? Let's do it. A voice breaks in. You sure are popular, Linhua. She turns, exulting. They speak for a while, catching up amid golden maple leaves. Are you headed to court? She asks him. My workload won't decrease if I take a break. Silying says. That's too bad. I'll be back to taking care of Jiyu by tomorrow morning. Linhua tells him. As they part he offers a soft smile. I'll be leaving now. I'll see you later. Take care, big brother, Linhua says. The children wave goodbye cheerfully. See ya. With a smile Linhua watches them play. The palace grounds echo with the joy of little voices, and for a moment, everything feels warm, light, and whole again. The warm light of morning gilded the tiled roofs of the Lu estate, brushing across the carved beams and painted railings like the stroke of a gentle painter's hand. From within the main hall figures stood clustered in farewell. A small boy with hair tied in a high ponytail peered up at a taller, elegant woman, whose long hair cascaded like black silk down her back. His name was Jiyu, and his round eyes shimmered with earnest concern. I'll be back soon, she said, her voice soft like wind through reeds. Jiyu clutched at the hem of her robe. Listen, when you go to bed you need to make sure you're nice and warm, okay? The woman smiled, her eyes curving gently, her cheeks flushing at the child's mimicry. Yes, Jiyu. A thought passed through her mind as she watched him mimic the same thing she had said to him countless times. It's tremendously cute how he imitates what he's always told. Her heart squeezed. She'd watched over Jiyu every day for the last half year, comforted him, guided him, protected him. But now, standing before him as he reminded her to take care, she realized something that made her chest tighten with emotion. He was actually the one watching over me. You'd be lonely if you came back on your own, right? Should I have Lixiao come to get you? Jiyu asked, his concern genuine. She shook her head gently. Definitely not. Thank you, but I'll be okay. The Lu family has guards too. Jiyu's small brow furrowed as she crouched to his level. Let's play the Erhu when I get back. A promise. A bond. Then his small hand tugged gently on her sleeve. Jiyu, she said softly. He looked up at her, eyes solemn. Promise. A pause. Her own breath caught. I'll return to your side, Jiyu, she whispered, placing her hands gently over his. Please wait for me in the harem. Promise? He asked again. Yes, I promise. Okay. The moment lingered like mist on a quiet morning, delicate and easily broken. But then as she turned to go, another voice called out, bright and warm. Linhua. She turned to see him. Soren. seated atop a horse in traveling attire, his presence calm and assured. "I'll be awaiting your return as well," he said. Her heart fluttered unexpectedly. "Soren, we've been seeing each other nearly every day ever since he started having breakfast with Jiyu. I won't get to see him tomorrow." A pang of absence already took root. He looked back at her. "See you then." "Yeah." And with that he turned and rode off, the carriage rolling behind him through the gates. She stood, watching, as his silhouette grew small in the distance. Petals drifted in the air like soft partings, and she whispered under her breath to herself, "See you soon." The heavy wooden gates opened once more, but this time to a different welcome. "My laddie," a voice cried. Lenoir turned and brightened. "Meow?" The girl ran toward her and, snag, tripped head first with a loud miao2. "Aha, my lady," Meow called out, beaming from the floor. "Long time no see. You're as hasty as ever. Are you okay?" "Yep." Meow bounced up, brushing herself off. "It's really been a long time. Have you been doing well?" "Yeah, I've been great." They moved inside, laughter and familiarity coloring their conversation. "So everyone has been doing well?" "I was quite surprised myself." Meow grinned. "I couldn't believe it when you suddenly decided to work in the harem. Mom and I were so worried. But I'm glad you're doing well too." Lenoir smiled, warmth flickering in her chest. "Yeah, nothing much has changed around here. I'll help you change your clothes before dinner." Meow clapped her hands with joy. "Huh? I think these clothes are fine, actually." Meow's face turned dramatic. "Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. I'll change." "I'll change." Lenoir surrendered quickly. Soon after, Lenoir seated again, now adorned in elaborate garments, her hair styled with glittering flowers and pins. She examined herself in the mirror. "Thanks," she said. "All done." Meow puffed with pride. "I think I did a pretty good job. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home." Lenoir murmured. Then her gaze fell upon a familiar instrument. That erhu is." "Yep. That's the one back from the workshop." Meow confirmed. "I'm glad it could be fixed." Just then a quiet voice peeked in. "Can I join you, Lady Qui?" "No, Quillen. Please, come in." As Quillen stepped into the room, Lenoir's heart softened. "I never thought that Quillen would become my little sister." "Have you gotten used to living in the Lu household yet?" Lenoir asked. Quillen nodded eagerly. "It's really fun here. I get to play with Feilong every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice." "I'm so happy to hear that," Lenoir said, sincerely moved. Quillen beamed. "I want to try playing the erhu soon. Feilong has an erhu made for children. If you borrowed that, you could begin practicing right away." Quillen hesitated. "Well, Feilong, he broke it." Lenoir blinked. "He broke it?" He said. "I was swinging it like a wooden sword and it broke." Everyone was so mad. Lenoir laughed nervously. I can imagine perfectly what happened." "Well," Quillen added, "Mother told me she'd have one made for me." In that case, Lenoir reached for her own erhu. "How about playing this one?" "Can I really?" "Come here. I'll hold it for you." The strings were a bit loose, not quite taut, but they produced a delicate sweet sound that echoed in the room. Quillen followed Lenoir's instructions, and together they played. "It sounds so good." "Yes, you're very skilled," Lenoir praised. "Let's play some more." "Yes, big sister." Lenoir smiled. The courtyard was hushed under the pale morning light, petals drifting in the gentle breeze. Lenoir stood in front of Jiyu, a small figure with big eyes clouded with worry. His tiny hands clutched her robe, reluctant to let go. She bent to his level, gently placing her hands on his shoulders. "I'll return to your side, Jiyu," she whispered softly, her voice trembling with warmth. A flicker of emotion stirred behind his usual stoic eyes. "Is he worried I won't return to the harem?" she wondered, heart clenching at the thought. "Promise?" he asked, voice barely audible. Lenoir nodded. "Yes, I promise. Please wait for me in the harem." A faint smile crept across his face, brief but full of trust. "Okay," he replied, reluctant but accepting. As she rose and stepped back, he turned and walked away slowly, guided by his maid. At the last moment, he looked over his shoulder. "See you later," he said. Lenoir watched him go, heart tugging, when suddenly, "My laddie," cried a familiar voice. A joyous blur burst through the palace doors. Meow, her old friend and childhood companion. Her energy had not changed a bit, even if her steps ended in a clumsy fall. "Meow?" Lenoir exclaimed with delight, rushing to help. Meow jumped up with a sparkle in her eyes, beaming. "Aha,
My lady, long time no see. Lenoir couldn't help but laugh. You're as hasty as ever. Are you okay? Yep. Mayao chirped. It's really been a long time. Have you been doing well? Their reunion brought warmth to Lenoir's heart. She learned that Mayao had been doing splendidly, now working in the harem. A surprise even to her. Mayao's excitement was palpable, practically bouncing as she declared her joy in helping her mistress change clothes. I think these clothes are fine, actually. Lenoir began, but Mayao's eyes sparkled with fervor. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. Faced with that unstoppable beam of joy, Lenoir gave in. I'll change. Dressed in elaborate robes, adorned with delicate flowers and shimmering fabrics, Lenoir gazed at her reflection. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home, she murmured, nostalgia settling in. All done. Mayao beamed, hands on hips. I think I did a pretty good job. Lenoir smiled. Thanks. But before they could fully bask in the glow of transformation, a gentle voice called from the doorway. Can I join you? It was a soft-faced girl peeking shyly from behind the door. Lady Kui. No Quilin. Lenoir greeted. As Mayao excused herself, Lenoir turned her attention to the girl. Have you gotten used to living in the Los household yet? Quilin nodded enthusiastically. It's really fun here. I get to play with Feilong every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor. Her cheer faded slightly as she admitted she wanted to learn the Erhu. But Feilong had broken the one made for children. He said he was swinging it like a wooden sword, and it broke, Quilin muttered, cheeks red with embarrassment. Lenoir sighed and chuckled, imagining the scene all too vividly. I can imagine perfectly what happened. Well, Lenoir offered, standing. How about playing this one? Quilin's eyes widened. Can I really? Come here. I'll hold it for you. Quilin trembled with excitement, as Lenoir helped her grip the bow. With careful guidance, they began to play, the gentle hum of music filling the room. This is the Erhu that Quilin broke just before the Empress selection ceremony. Lenoir thought, she still remembers what I told her then, and is handling it with great care. The notes were clumsy, but endearing, like a bird learning to fly. Lenoir smiled. She's doing her best. Yes, you're very skilled, she praised. Quilin lit up. It sounds so good. I never thought that Quilin would become my little sister. Lenoir thought, moved by the bond blooming between them. Let's play some more. Yes, big sister. Meanwhile, under the moonlight at the governmental palace, the atmosphere was starkly different. Sharon sat behind a lacquered desk, when a man entered, robes whispering as he bowed. I have something urgent to report, he announced grimly. Back at the low state, Lenoir played with the children, laughter ringing through the air. Let's catch bugs next. How about a board game? Lenoir suggested gently. Then came a voice, firm, familiar. You sure are popular, Lenoir. It was Zilliang. Their brief exchange held subtle weight, especially when he asked if she'd return to the harem that evening. Lenoir's gaze softened. Yes, by tomorrow morning, I'll be back to taking care of Jiyu. Later, as Lenoir entered the dining hall, expecting to meet her mother, she stopped dead in her tracks. Lexiao? She gasped. The man looked up from his meal mid-chomp. Hey Lenoir, why are you here? Jiyu ordered me to come pick you up, he said nonchalantly. Rice, still in his bowl. Sharon told me to come too. Huh? Really? Wah? Their banter carried a sense of relief. Familiar, grounding. I'll gladly accept your help, Lenoir said. I have every reason to be targeted, she added in thought. I'm Jiyu's caretaker, and the daughter of the Chancellor of the Right, though being Sharon's fiancée is still a secret. Lexiao chomped away, ever unbothered, as she pondered the burden of her public image. That night, under the moon's glow, Lenoir sat beside him. I was just thinking about how I'd like to sneak out to the city like my brother, she whispered. But that won't ever come true, will it? Will you be escorting my ox carriage, Lexiao? He nodded. Yeah, that's the plan. But if anything happens, I've been told to take you by horse to the palace. The plan had more layers. Additionally, Lexiao said, voice dropping low, we'll be using a decoy this time. Mayao, her mother said firmly. The decoy will be Mayao. The soft hush of morning still hung in the palace air. When Lenoir stood near the gates, her gaze quietly fixed on the figure before her. Sharon sat astride a tall steed, dressed in elegant robes that shimmered subtly under the dappled sunlight. His poise was calm, yet the breeze that tangled through his hair made the moment feel fleeting, transient, like a dream dissolving at the break of dawn. I'll be awaiting your return as well, Lenoir said, her voice almost too gentle to be carried by the wind. Sharon's eyes met hers for a moment. Yeah, see you then. As the retinue began to move, her thoughts whispered inside her heart. Sharon, that reminds me, ever since Soren began to have breakfast with Jiyu, we've been seeing each other nearly every day. She turned her head slightly, holding down the faint flutter in her chest. I won't get to see him tomorrow. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Lenoir, she startled slightly, turning toward the familiar tone. The moment passed, and Soren's horse trotted away, his figure receding toward the horizon. Pink petals floated across the courtyard like falling memories, and Lenoir watched until the last glimmer of his silhouette disappeared behind the wooden palanquin and guards. Later that day, as golden sunlight filtered through the palace corridors, a cry broke the stillness. My lady. It was a voice so familiar it drew a smile from Lenoir's lips before she even turned. Mayao, her wet nurse's daughter, came running, arms open with joy, only to trip and tumble across the polished floors. Mayao, wah. Lenoir rushed forward. Mayao. The girl sprang back up with a grin. My lady, long time no see. They embraced warmly. The girls chatted quickly and cheerfully. Mayao spoke with excitement, describing her life in the harem. Yeah, I've been great. You're as hasty as ever. Lenoir chuckled, helping her up. Mayao's eyes sparkled. Mom and I were so worried when you decided to come here, but it seems you're doing okay. As evening approached, Mayao insisted on dressing Lenoir for dinner. I'll help you change your clothes before dinner. Huh? I think these clothes are fine, actually. Mayao beamed. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. With a resigned sigh, Lenoir relented. I'll change. What followed was a swirl of fabrics, laughter, and floral ornaments. Mayao tied her sash, placed flowers in her hair, and grinned with satisfaction. All done. I think I did a pretty good job. Looking at herself in the mirror, Lenoir's voice softened. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home. Thanks. But as her eyes swept the room, she paused. That or who? Is, yes, Mayao said brightly. It's the one back from the workshop. Their attention turned to the musical instrument. Delicate, repaired, polished. Lenoir tilted her head. I'm glad it could be fixed. Just then a soft knock at the door. Can I join you? Quillen peeked in shyly. Lady Qui. No, Quillen, please come in. They sat together, the atmosphere calm and fragrant. Lenoir asked gently, have you gotten used to living in the Lowell household yet? Quillen nodded earnestly. It's really fun here. I get to play with Phylong every day, and the calligraphy instructor is so nice. If you ask mother to let you learn the erhu, I'm sure my old teacher will come for you. Lenoir offered. I want to try playing one soon, the little girl declared. But then, her expression dimmed. Phylong, broke it. He broke it? Lenoir nearly screamed. Quillen flinched. He said, I was swinging it like a wooden sword, and it broke. Everyone was so mad. With a sigh, Lenoir offered her own erhu. How about playing this one? Can I really? Come here. I'll hold it for you. As Quillen sat between her arms, Lenoir guided her gently. The strings trembled under the beginner's hand. The melody was awkward, but it sang. This is the erhu that Quillen broke just before the Empress selection ceremony. Lenoir thought to herself, she still remembers what I told her then, and is handling it with great care. A harmony floated through the room, filled with fragile emotion. It sounds so good. Quillen beamed. Yes, Lenoir said. You're very skilled. I never thought that Quillen would become my little sister. Their moment was interrupted by urgent whispers in the palace. The scene shifted to the governmental palace. Night had fallen. A cloaked figure entered the room, where Soren waited. Sharon, I have something urgent to report. Meanwhile, back in the Low estate, Lenoir played joyfully with the children. Let's catch bugs next. There aren't many bugs right now. Lenoir smiled. How about a board game instead? The warmth of family wrapped around her. You sure are popular, Lenoir, said a familiar voice. It was Zilliang. They spoke briefly, sharing news. He asked, will you be returning to the harem this evening? Lenoir's eyes softened. Yes, by tomorrow morning I'll be back to taking care of Zheyu. But something stirred uneasily inside her. Later, in the dining hall, she found someone unexpected. Lixeyo? He greeted her with a bowl in hand, eating heartily. Heyo Lenoir, Zheyu, ordered me to come pick you up. Huh? Really? Sharon told me to come too, he added. Wah? Lenoir paused, realizing the complexity of her position. Caretaker of a royal child, daughter of the Chancellor of the Right, and secretly engaged to Soren. I have every reason to be targeted, she thought, her hands tightening. They began to plan. Lenoir's us board her carriage. A decoy would ride ahead. That decoy was Mayao. Later, in a quiet room, Mayao bowed. Well then, I'm off. Mayao, wait, Lenoir called. She threw her arms around her. Please be careful. Thank you for everything. Yes, my lady, Mayao said softly, eyes glittering. As she watched Mayao leave, Lenoir turned to Lixale. Why is all this necessary? She whispered. Her heart, like the cherry petals drifting in the wind, trembled. The sky was pale, and flower petals drifted like soft snowflakes in the air. The scent of early spring clung to the breeze. At the gates of the estate, Lenoir sat atop her white horse, long hair, dancing like ribbons in the wind. She glanced back once, just once, with eyes that said everything she could not. Opposite her stood a woman with gentle eyes, her gaze fixed on the departing silhouette. See you then, Lenoir murmured. Yeah, came the quiet reply. As the carriage slowly creaked forward, guards flanking it in silence, Lenoir didn't look back again. But Mayao, watching from the courtyard, felt a pang in her chest. Was this goodbye? No, not entirely. But things would change. Later, back at the estate, the petals still spiraled lazily, as Mayao ran forward, voice ringing bright. My lai. Lenoir turned. Her face had changed, worn with the weight of choice, but her eyes widened in surprise and warmth. Mayao. The two friends collided, not with grace, but with joy. Mayao tripped and tumbled, but rose beaming. Ah, ha, my lady. The reunion was filled with bright chatter. It's really been a long time, Lenoir said, kneeling down to help her up. Have you been doing well? Yeah, I've been great, Mayao replied, bouncing on her toes. I couldn't believe it when you suddenly decided to work in the harem. Mom and I were worried. Lenoir smiled softly. Mayao had grown, but some things hadn't changed. They were still the same age, still connected by more than just time. As the two talked, Mayao's excitement spilled over. Let's change your clothes before dinner. Lenoir hesitated, unsure, but Mayao's radiant enthusiasm was irresistible. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. Lenoir sighed in surrender. I'll change. Wrapped in flowing robes of delicate silk, her hair adorned with ornaments and flowers, Lenoir stared into the mirror. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home, she murmured, touched by the transformation. Behind her, Mayao sparkled with pride. I think I did a pretty good job. Their shared laughter was interrupted by the soft creak of the door. A young girl peeked in shyly. Can I join you? Lenoir turned with a smile. Lady Kui. No, Quilin, please come in. She looked so small, so full of wonder. Lenoir remembered being like that, once. As they sat together, Lenoir asked gently, have you gotten used to the Lu household yet? Quilin nodded, her cheeks flushed. It's really fun here. I get to play with Fei Long every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. Lenoir listened, touched by the child's joy. If you ask mother to let you learn the erhu, my old teacher will come for you. I want to try playing one soon. Well, Lenoir said, Fei Long has an erhu made for children. If you borrowed that, the mood shifted. Quilin's eyes dropped. Ah, well, Fei Long broke it. Lenoir nearly dropped her teacup. He broke it. He said he was swinging it like a wooden sword, and it broke. A sigh passed through the room, somewhere between exasperation and amusement. Let's use this one, Lenoir offered, reaching for her own restored erhu. Can I really? Quilin whispered, eyes wide. Come here, Lenoir said. I'll hold it for you. The girl's hands trembled slightly, as she held the bow. It sounds so good. Quilin gasped, filled with wonder. Lenoir smiled. Yes, you're very skilled. She looked at the child in her arms, and felt a strange warmth, something maternal, something sisterly. I never thought that Quilin would become my little sister.
Later, the scene shifted. The governmental palace loomed under moonlight, its windows aglow. I have something urgent to report, a figure said to Soren, his voice grim. But back at the Lu estate, the days were bright, filled with laughter. Sis, Let's catch bugs next. No bugs this time of year, Lenhua chuckled. How about Shugoroku? Let's do it. From the side, a familiar voice spoke. You sure are popular, Lenhua. Zillying, she said in surprise. Their conversation was quiet, thoughtful. He asked gently, will you be returning to the harem this evening? But something was wrong. The shadows grew longer. In the dining hall, Lenhua froze. Mother, what did you? She stopped. A man was eating hungrily, at the table. Not her mother. Lixiao? He grinned with his mouth full. Heya, Lenhua, why are you here? Ziyu ordered me to come pick you up. Soren told me too, he added, waving his chopsticks. Later, her thoughts whirled. Lenhua stood in her room, gazing into the distance. I have every reason to be targeted, she murmured. Her mind circled the truth, daughter of the Chancellor of the Right, caretaker of the Emperor's son, fiancé of Soren, though a secret. It made sense. She held her robes tightly, feeling the sting of restraint. Why is all this necessary? A decoy would be used. Mayao will ride in the carriage, her mother said. You'll change into these garments, and leave afterward, with Lixiao leading the way. Mayao smiled bravely, but Lenhua ran to hug her. Please be careful. Thank you for everything, Mayao whispered. Yes, my lady, and then she was gone. Lenhua turned to Lixiao. Why is all this necessary? He didn't answer, just took a bite of his bun, eyes unreadable. If possible, he said, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it. Lenhua's heart clenched. So it really was dangerous. All right then, she said. I'll entrust this matter to you. He looked at her, and for a moment, his face softened. Smile. Outside the estate, the time had come. Her mother embraced her. Take care of yourself. Lenhua bowed her head. Thank you, mother. To Quellan and Filong, she said, we'll see each other again soon enough. Until then, take care. The gates opened. Petals danced again on the wind. The palace corridor was bathed in a gentle golden light, filtered through lattice screens and drifting flower petals. Lenhua stood alone, her expression somber, her long sleeves catching the soft breeze like silk banners in morning. Her steps were measured, hesitant, as though she walked not just toward a place, but toward a fate she hadn't chosen. From behind, an excited voice broke the stillness. My lady, the joyful cry belonged to Mayao, her childhood friend, now a palace maid. She raced forward, arms outstretched and smile bright, her joy unable to be contained. Lenhua's eyes widened, her sadness briefly pierced by surprise and warmth. Mayao, in a moment of pure clumsy exuberance, Mayao tripped, caught on the edge of her robe, and tumbled spectacularly, across the wooden floor. Mayao, but she bounced back up, laughing, eyes shining. Long time no see, she beamed. The two young women sat together, their faces close in conversation. You're as hasty as ever, Lenhua teased gently. Are you okay? Yep, I've been great, Mayao chirped, sitting up with a sheepish grin. A gentle moment passed between them. So everyone has been doing well? Lenhua asked, a trace of emotion in her voice. Mayao's tone turned soft. I couldn't believe it when you decided to work in the harem. Mom and I were worried. Her thoughts whispered alongside. Mayao is my wet nurse's daughter. She's the same age as me. As they chatted, Mayao eagerly suggested, I'll help you change before dinner. Lenhua glanced at her robes. I think these clothes are fine, but Mayao's face lit up like a firework. Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life. Lenhua could only sigh. Fine, I'll change. Later, dressed in elegant robes, adorned with blossoms and embroidery, Lenhua gazed into the mirror. Thanks, she murmured. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home. Mayao beamed, proud of her handiwork. Just then, Lenhua's eyes drifted toward the erhu resting by the door. That erhu is, yep, Mayao confirmed. That's the one back from the workshop. The instrument had been repaired, but not without history. Lenhua turned, and saw a small girl peeking timidly, from behind the door. Can I join you? The child asked. Lady Quell, no Quellan. Lenhua corrected herself with a smile. Please come in. As Mayao bowed and excused herself, Lenhua and Quellan sat together in the decorated room. Have you gotten used to the Lu household yet? Quellan nodded, her smile bright. It's really fun.
I get to play with Filong every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. Lunhua laughed. If you ask mother, I'm sure my old teacher will teach you the erhu. Quellen's eyes sparkled. I want to try playing one soon. Lunhua nodded. Filong has one made for children. You can borrow it. But Quellen's smile faltered. Well, Filong, he broke it. Lunhua's face darkened. He broke it. Apparently, Filong had been using the erhu as a wooden sword. Everyone was so mad, Quellen confessed. In that case, Lunhua moved to the corner of the room, and returned with the recently repaired instrument. How about playing this one? Can I really? Come here. I'll hold it for you. Lunhua guided Quellen's hands, gently correcting her grip. Hold the bow like this. Quellen drew the bow across the strings. It sounds so good. Lunhua smiled proudly. Yes, you're very skilled. Narration drifted over the gentle plucking of the strings. This is the erhu that Quellen broke before the Empress selection ceremony. She remembers what I told her then. She's handling it with great care. The bow strings aren't taut, but its clumsy sound is charming too. For a while, they played together in harmony. Let's play some more, Lunhua invited. Yes, big sister. Meanwhile, under the moonlight, inside the governmental palace, a darker current stirred. A man cloaked in official robes approached a seated noble. Soren, he said gravely. I have something urgent to report. Back at the Lu estate, the air was lighter again. Children tugged on Lunhua's sleeves. Sis, let's catch bugs next. How about a board game? She suggested. Let's do it. Sillying, a pale-haired official, approached with a smirk. You sure are popular, Lunhua, she greeted him warmly. Are you headed to court? Didn't Soren say you could take the day off? If I rest, my work will only pile up, Sillying replied with a rueful smile. Will you be returning to the harem this evening? He asked. Yes, she nodded, a shadow crossing her features. As he turned to leave, she reminded him. Mother was looking for you earlier. Inside the dining hall, Lunhua froze mid-step. There, happily munching away at a steaming bowl of rice, was a man with messy hair, and a carefree smile. Lixiao. He looked up mid-chew, unfazed. Heya, Lunhua, why are you here? She demanded. Jiyu told me to pick you up. Soren told me to come too, he added, cheerfully. Lunhua sighed, realizing how tangled her life had become. She thought to herself, I have every reason to be targeted. I'm Jiyu's caretaker, daughter of the Chancellor of the Right, and secretly, Soren's fiancée. I'll gladly accept your help. Still eating, Lixiao nodded. All right then, I'll entrust this matter to you. Later, Lunhua confessed. I was thinking about sneaking out into the city, like my brother, but that dream was quickly crushed. She asked, will you escort my ox carriage? Yeah, Lixiao confirmed. But if anything happens, I'll take you to the palace by horse. Plans were in motion. We'll be using a decoy, her mother said firmly. Mayao will wear these dark red servant's garments, and ride in the ox carriage first. You'll follow later. Lunhua turned to Mayao, eyes full of emotion. Please be careful. Thank you for everything. Yes, my lady. As Mayao departed, Lunhua whispered to herself. Why is all this necessary? She began to understand. There's a chance I could be attacked, because of Jiyu, or my father. No matter the reason, this is all too much. I'll entrust this matter to you, she repeated softly to herself. Before departure, Lunhua embraced Quellen and Filong one last time. Tears welled up in their eyes. From behind, her mother approached, offering a small pouch. This is for you. Medicine, Lunhua asked. It smells like burnt herbs. Take that before you get up to anything. Lunhua's cheeks turned crimson. If you get pregnant now, you'll neglect your duties. Waiting 5 years will be hard. But, mother? She cried, flustered. Her mother only closed her eyes, and sighed with elegance. But Soren is certainly old enough to have a child. The patterned doors of the Lu estate creaked open, allowing a gentle breeze to stir the embroidered hems of a long, elegant hanfu. Lunhua stepped inside, her silhouette, framed by the intricate lattice behind her, golden light spilling over her shoulders, like the memory of home. She had returned, and waiting just beyond the threshold, with a wide smile and boundless energy, was Mayo, her childhood companion, the daughter of her wet nurse, and a girl her own age, who now served within the inner palace. "You're as hasty as ever. Are you okay?" Lunhua asked, watching the other girl stumble in her excitement. "Yep," Mayo chirped, barely catching her balance. "It's really been a long time. Have you been doing well?" "Yeah, I've been great." Their reunion was a whirl of warmth and nostalgia, the kind of moment that melts away years in an instant. Mayo's eyes sparkled. "I couldn't believe it, when you suddenly decided to work in the harem," she said with a soft laugh. "Mom and I were worried. I was quite surprised myself," Lunhua admitted, her eyes briefly clouding with memory. But there was comfort in Mayo's presence, in the gentle rhythm of life resuming. "Set up." A melody rekindled later that evening. Mayo insisted on helping Lunhua change into more fitting clothes for dinner. Lunhua looked down at her attire, puzzled. "I think these clothes are fine actually." Mayo's eyes glimmered with purpose. "Making you beautiful is my greatest joy in life." With a beam of passion and almost terrifying enthusiasm, Mayo launched into her mission. Lunhua, reluctantly smiling, surrendered. "I'll change. I'll change." The transformation was nothing short of breathtaking. In ornate floral robes with delicate hair ornaments, nestled in cascading black hair, Lunhua caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. And paused. "Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home." She looked regal, distant, yet grounded. "Thanks," she whispered. In the corner of the room, resting on a polished stand, was an erhu. Its silhouette struck a chord in Lunhua's heart. "That erhua's?" "Yep," Mayo said gently. "That's the one back from the workshop. I'm glad it could be fixed." Before they could speak more, a small head peeked in through the screen. "Can I join you?" asked a little girl, eyes round and voice timid. "Lady Kuei." "No, Quellan." Lunhua corrected herself with a smile. "Please, come in." Development. Strings and bonds. Quellan shyly sat across from Lunhua, fidgeting with her sleeves. "Have you gotten used to living in the Lua household yet?" Lunhua asked. "It's really fun here," Quellan said, lighting up. "I get to play with Filong every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor." Lunhua smiled, but her mind caught on a name. "Filong has an erhu, made for children. If you borrowed that, you could start practicing right away." Quellan hesitated. "Well, Filong, he broke it." "He broke it?" Lunhua nearly dropped her teacup. "He said he was swinging it like a wooden sword," Quellan explained, shame in her voice. Lunhua sighed. I can imagine perfectly what happened. Still, there was another way." "How about playing this one?" she asked, offering her own cherished erhu. "Come here. I'll hold it for you." Eyes wide, Quellan clutched the bow, with trembling hands. The first sound she coaxed from the strings was clumsy but clear, sweet, pure. "Yes," Lunhua whispered, watching her. "You're very skilled." The strings wavered slightly, not as taut as they once were, yet the unstable timbre was its own kind of beauty. "I never thought Quellan would become my little sister," Lunhua mused silently. Climax. The secret journey. The next day, Lunhua stood among children and guards, in the Lua courtyard, her presence a beacon in her flowing garments. Laughter bubbled from the little ones. "Let's catch bugs next," they cried. But the moment was interrupted by the arrival of Siling, a court official. "You sure are popular, Lunhua," he greeted with a chuckle. Their exchange was brief, but behind those words was something heavier. A plan was already in motion, one born of secrets and politics. Lunhua was summoned, not by her mother as she had assumed, but by Lixio, a familiar figure who greeted her mid-meal, with a hearty, "Heya, Lunhua." She stared at him, stunned. "Lixio, why are you here?" You ordered me to come pick you up," he said casually, still chewing. And so the truth unfolded. There was danger. Lunhua, as the Chancellor's daughter and caretaker of Z.U., and secretly, fiancé of Soren, was a target. Plans were made. A decoy would be used. Mayo. 2 ox carriages would depart. One would be a ruse. This is all necessary, Lun Hua admitted, though her heart trembled. Her goodbyes to Mayo were tearful. Thank you for everything, she whispered, embracing her friend. Please, be careful. Mayo smiled warmly. Yes, my lady. And just before departure, Lun Hua's mother approached her with a package. Medicine? It smells like burnt herbs. Her mother's eyes sparkled wickedly. If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties. So take that before you get up to anything. Lun Hua blushed furiously. Maya, it's understandable that mother is worried, but still, she screamed inside. Resolution, wheels, in motion, blushing furiously, and gripping her bundle tightly, Lun Hua boarded the carriage. The wheels creaked into motion. Why is all this necessary? She murmured to Lixiao, as they rode. He glanced at her, half a bun still in his hand. All this must mean there's a chance you could be attacked, either because of you, or your father. If possible, he added gently, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it. She nodded. I'll entrust this matter to you. As the estate gates faded in the distance, Lun Hua turned one last time. Filong and Quellen waved from behind their mother. We'll see each other again soon enough, she promised. Until then, take care. The journey had begun, not just through roads and politics, but toward her fate, toward love, toward danger, and toward the palace that waited for her arrival. In a room fragrant with fresh petals and faint incense, Lady Lun Hua sat poised in front of a polished mirror. Her long black hair had been adorned with shimmering hairpins and delicate blossoms by a skilled maid, who now stepped back with pride. All done, the maid declared with a triumphant smile. I think I did a pretty good job. Lun Hua turned to admire herself in the mirror, her gown trailing in elegant folds to the floor. A wistful warmth touched her gaze. Dressing like this really makes me feel like I'm back at home, she murmured softly, a flicker of nostalgia dancing in her eyes. Thanks, she added quietly, but sincerely. As the two women shared that quiet moment, her gaze wandered, and paused upon a familiar instrument resting nearby. Memories restored. That Hua is. The maid followed Lun Hua's eyes. Yep, that's the one back from the workshop. I'm glad it could be fixed. Lun Hua whispered, her voice thick with recollection. She stepped closer to it, her fingers gently grazing the polished wood. At that moment, a soft peek came from the doorway. Can I join you? A small figure stepped in. Quellen, clad in a pretty hanfu, her wide eyes shining with hope. Lady Que. No, Quellen. Lun Hua smiled tenderly. Please come in. I'll leave you two alone, the maid said, excusing herself politely. A blossoming bond. As Quellen walked in, her little feet made barely a sound on the lacquered floor. She settled beside Lun Hua, her voice barely above a whisper. Have you gotten used to living in the Lu household yet? Quellen's face lit up. It's really fun here. I get to play with Filong every day. And I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. A chuckle escaped Lun Hua. I'm so happy to hear that. If you ask mother to let you learn the erhu soon, I'm sure my old teacher will come for you. Quellen perked up instantly. I want to try playing one soon. I believe Filong has an erhu made for children. You could borrow that, and begin practicing right away. The child's expression darkened a little. Well Filong. Her words trailed. Lun Hua tilted her head. What's the matter? Well Filong. Quellen's cheeks puffed in frustration. Broke it. He broke it? Lun Hua exclaimed, eyes wide. Unexpected mishaps. Quellen squirmed. He said, I was swinging it like a wooden sword, and it broke. Everyone was so mad. Lun Hua pressed her palm to her forehead, in disbelief. I can imagine perfectly what happened. The Wei workshop is currently making a new one, Quellen added helpfully. So I don't have it yet. In that case, Lun Hua turned toward the polished erhu from before. How about playing this one? Quellen's eyes grew round. Can I really? Yes. Come here. I'll hold it for you. She gently placed the child's small hands around the bow. Hold the bow like this. Quellen concentrated with all her might, her fingers trembling slightly. Strings of the heart. The bow moved. A sweet clumsy timbre rang out. This is the erhu that Quellen broke, just before the Empress selection ceremony. Lun Hua reflected inwardly. She still remembers what I told her then, and is handling the erhu with great care. Though the bow strings were not as taut and firm as those of a beginner's model, their uneven melody carried an earnestness that was charming in its own way. It sounds so good, Quellen beamed. Yes, you're very skilled, Lun Hua said, her arms gently wrapped around the child from behind, to steady her form. A warm breeze fluttered the petals by the window. I never thought that Quellen would become my little sister. Let's play some more. Yes, big sister. A sudden turn elsewhere, under the full silver moon. The mood shifted. At the governmental palace, a man cloaked in black entered solemnly. Soren, I have something urgent to report. Back at the Lu estate, children's laughter echoed in the courtyard. Sis, let's catch bugs next. How about a board game like Shugaroku? Lun Hua offered. Let's do it. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out to her. Sillying. She turned. You sure are popular, Lun Hua, Sillying said with a smirk. She smiled. Are you headed to court? I thought Soren told you to take the day off. My workload won't decrease if I take a break, he replied with a sigh. Will you be returning to the harem this evening, Lun Hua? Yes, by tomorrow morning, I'll be back to taking care of Seizi. As he turned to leave, Lun Hua called softly. Take care, big brother. He paused only to smile. I'll see you later. Unsettling orders, but when Lun Hua arrived at the dining hall, the one who awaited her wasn't her mother. Lixiao, with a mouthful of rice, he greeted her casually. Hey Lun Hua, what are you doing here? Haha, Seizi, you ordered me to come pick you up. Soren told me to come too, he added, grinning. Lun Hua stared in disbelief. The atmosphere turned serious. I have every reason to be targeted, she said later. I'm Seizi Yu's caretaker, daughter of the Chancellor of the Right. And though it's still a secret, I'm also Soren's fiancé. Lixiao looked at her with new weight in his eyes. I'll gladly accept your help. Plans were laid. A decoy would be used. Mayo would ride first. Lun Hua would change into a servant's robe and slip away discreetly. Farewells. At the gate, Lun Hua hugged Mayo tightly. Please be careful. Mayo smiled with warm strength. Thank you for everything. Yes, my lady. As the carriage prepared to depart, Lun Hua remained, clutching a folded package from her mother. What is it? She asked. Medicine. It smells like burnt herbs. If you were to fall pregnant now, her mother said plainly, you'd end up neglecting your duties. Take that before you get up to anything. Mother. Lun Hua's face burned crimson. Her mother chuckled. Waiting for 5 years will be difficult. But due to his position, Soren can't go to a brothel. He's old enough to have a child, isn't he? Blushing furiously, Lun Hua finally squeaked. Fine. Journey begins. The carriage rolled away. Lun Hua came Lixiao's voice, as he rode beside her. We should pick up the pace. It looks like it'll start raining soon. She nodded. Okay. With that they left the Lu estate behind. But the journey, both political and emotional, was only just beginning. Beneath the cool brush of early spring blossoms, in the refined splendor of the Lua household, gentle peace wrapped itself around the rooms, like morning mist. The garden bloomed with soft peonies, and a faint breeze carried the scent of ink, perfumed tea, and budding flowers into the air. Inside, seated beside a finely carved round table, inlaid with silver peonies, a woman with flowing black hair and poised elegance sipped tea with quiet grace. Her robes, patterned like twilight clouds, shimmered faintly as she glanced across the room. Have you gotten used to living in the Lua household yet? She asked softly, her voice steady but kind. Across from her sat a girl, in rich red robes, adorned with floral embroidery. Though younger, her eyes sparkled brightly, and a shy smile bloomed on her lips. It's really fun here, she said. almost bouncing in place with joy. I get to play with Fei Long every day, and I love the calligraphy instructor. She's so nice. The older woman chuckled lightly, her lips curling into a small pleased smile. Ah, I'm so happy to hear that. Her gaze was tender. If you ask mother to let you learn the erhu soon, I'm sure my old teacher will come for you. The girl clasped her hands excitedly. I want to try playing one soon.
They moved to a different room. Delicate screens casting long shadows over polished floors. The older woman gestured to a space near the window. I believe Fei Long has an erhu made for children. If you borrowed that, you could begin practicing right away. She added with a wry smile. He doesn't have any interest in playing it after all. The girl hesitated, her eyes flickering with guilt. Ah. Well, Fei Long, he... A dramatic pause followed, and she bowed her head, whispering, "He broke it." The silence was cut by the woman's shocked gasp. "He broke it?" The girl nodded. He said, "I was swinging it like a wooden sword and it broke." Everyone was so mad. Amused exasperation softened the tension. "Ah, I can imagine perfectly what happened," the woman muttered, pressing fingers to her temple. The girl gave a sheepish laugh. "Foster mother told me she'd have one made for me, from the Wei workshop." In that case, the woman rose gracefully and walked to a nearby stand. "How about playing this one?" The erhu she picked up glowed under the filtered sunlight, wood gleaming, delicate strings strung tightly. The girl's eyes widened. "Can I really? Come here, I'll hold it for you." With childlike reverence, the girl stepped forward, reaching for the bow. Her hands trembled with excitement as she took the delicate instrument. "Hold the bow like this," the woman instructed patiently. They played, the notes trembling at first, uncertain, but slowly shaping into something melodious. "This is the erhu that Quilun broke just before the Empress selection ceremony," the woman reflected in thought. She still remembers what I told her then, and is handling the erhu with great care. The timbre was unstable, the bow strings not as taut as a professional's, but there was something sincere and beautiful about the fragile sound. "It sounds so good," the girl exclaimed. "Yes," came the soft reply. "You're very skilled." Looking down at the girl in her arms, the woman's expression softened further. "I never thought that Quilun would become my little sister." "Let's play some more," the girl whispered. "Yes, big sister." Their laughter echoed softly, rising like a melody across the curved roofs of the Liu estate. But evening fell, and with it came new winds. In the governmental palace, a man with long, severe features and midnight hair sat in contemplation, candlelight dancing across his robes. A subordinate entered with heavy footsteps, bowing deeply. "Sarin, I have something urgent to report." Back at the Liu estate, Lin Yue strolled through the courtyard surrounded by children. They begged for more games, catching bugs, making mud balls, but the chill of autumn had begun to settle in. "That might be tough," she said with a smile. "There aren't many bugs right now. Let's make mud balls. How about a board game like Shugaroku?" "Let's do it," they cheered. Nearby, Sillying, ever calm, remarked, "You sure are popular, Lin Yue." Their light-hearted moment paused as Lin Yue's gaze met his. "Are you headed to the court? I thought Sarin told you to take the day off." Sillying's answer was calm, unyielding. "My workload won't decrease if I take a break." She watched him sadly. "Ah. Well, that's too bad. Will you be returning to the harem this evening, Lin Yue?" She turned away. "Yes, by tomorrow morning, I'll be back to taking care of Jiyu." Sillying bowed. "I'll be leaving now. I'll see you later." She nodded. "Take care, big brother." But when Lin Yue entered the dining hall, her heart paused. "Mother, what did you need?" She stopped short. Before her sat Lixiao, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Lixiao, why are you here?" He grinned, holding a bowl of rice mid-bite. "Hey, Lin Yue, why are you ha ha ha, say you ordered me to come pick you up," he said with a laugh. "Sarin told me to come too." Lin Yue blinked, overwhelmed. Wah. Their conversation shifted from playful to serious. Lin Yue's thoughts turned inward. "I'm Jiyu's caretaker, and daughter of the Chancellor of the Right. Though the fact I'm also Sarin's fiancée is still a secret, it's common knowledge that we're well acquainted through my brother." She mused, watching Lixiao eat noisily beside her. She sighed. "I have every reason to be targeted." Lixiao paused. "If possible, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it." She gave him a long look, then nodded. "All right then, I'll entrust this matter to you." Ed with a veil of tension in the air. Just outside the estate,
Lin Yue stood beside a waiting ox carriage, eyes lingering on her siblings, Quilin and Philong, who clung to her with tear-brimmed eyes. Big sis, Philong mumbled, his voice small. See ya, Lin Yue. Quilin sniffed. Lin Yue hugged them both tightly, burying her face into their little shoulders. We'll see each other again soon enough. Until then, take care. Behind them, Siliang stepped forward, extending a small sachet wrapped in brocade. Lin Yue, this is for you. Lin Yue accepted it curiously. What is it? Medicine, he answered, his tone calm and composed. She gave it a sniff, recoiling slightly. It smells like burnt herbs. Then came the mother's intervention, graceful, commanding, and wholly embarrassing. She smiled sweetly, hand raised in delicate instruction. If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties, she mused aloud, leaving Lin Yue red to her ears. Take that, before you get up to anything. Lin Yue sputtered, panicking. And mother? The woman ignored her reaction entirely. Putting you aside for a moment, Shuren is already old enough to have a child, correct? Lin Yue's face blazed. And no, we'll wait until we're officially married. She buried her face in her sleeve. It's understandable that mother is worried, but still, with a parting laugh, the elegant woman climbed into the carriage. Take care. The wheels turned with a rhythmic clatter as the decoy departed. Lin Yue watched from the window, heart pounding. The plan was simple, but its success would depend on stealth, timing, and a little luck. The real carriage veered into a side path, while Lixiao, mounted on horseback, kept close. But halfway through the forested route, a sudden stop jolted the carriage. We stopped, but we should only be halfway to the palace. Lin Yue glanced out, nerves spiking. I can't see what's going on outside due to the curtain and lattice. I wonder if something happened. The sound of voices, low and muffled, reached her ears. Lixiao, she whispered. The guards were gathered outside. Tension clung to the air like fog. She pressed her palm to the screen. Lin Yue, come out here. She froze at the familiar voice. I have a bad feeling about this, she whispered, sliding open the door. Lixiao reached out a hand to her. The situation has changed, he said, urgency clear in his tone. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback. She hesitated for only a breath. Okay, their hands clasped, and she leapt from the carriage, into his waiting grip. Mounted behind him, the wind whipped through Lin Yue's hair as they took off down the path. So high, this is the first time I've ever been on such a large horse, she thought, holding on to Lixiao's cloak. This horse is faster than average, he warned. Be sure not to fall. This horse should get us to the palace in no time. Lin Yue steadied herself, nodding. 2 Lu family guards rode beside them, their faces hidden behind traditional masks. We'll be right behind you, one called. Thanks, Lin Yue replied breathlessly. With a last jolt, the horses surged forward. Let's go, Lixiao shouted. And together, they galloped into the unknown, toward the palace, toward fate, and the next chapter of this unfolding intrigue. Would you like the next part adapted as well? The sun cast a soft golden glow across the Lu estate, bathing the tiled roofs and wooden corridors in its gentle warmth. Within this fleeting peace, laughter echoed, a rare and precious melody. Lin Yue stood among her little siblings, her long robe rustling as the younger ones tugged at her sleeves with uncontainable excitement. Sis, let's catch bugs next, Qian shouted, waving around a leaf and stick like a tiny warrior of nature. That might be tough, Lin Yue chuckled, patting his head. It's already gotten colder, there aren't many bugs out right now. Then let's make mud balls, Philong chimed in enthusiastically, eyes gleaming. We can shine them up. How about a board game? Lin Yue offered, always the mediator, her voice a soft spring breeze, like Shugaroku. Let's do it, came the chorus of cheers. Watching over the scene from the corridor, Siliang smiled fondly. You sure are popular, Lin Yue. The delicate peace of that morning quickly shifted when Lin Yue was called to the dining hall. Expecting to see her mother, she turned a corner and froze mid-step. Lixiao, she gasped. The man before her stood casually, chopsticks in one hand, a bowl of rice in the other. Heya, Lin Yue, why are you here? He chewed, grinning. Shiyu ordered me to come pick you up. Surin told me to come too, a younger voice added. Lin Yue blinked, caught between confusion and amusement. Wah? Her thoughts turned more serious later, as the two sat for a quiet meal. I have every reason to be targeted, Lin Yue confessed, as Shiyu's caretaker, daughter of the Chancellor of the Right, and though it's a secret, I'm also Surin's fiancé. Lixiao took it in calmly. I'll gladly accept your help. Later that day, preparations for Lin Yue's departure began. Concern lingered on everyone's faces as layers of caution unfolded. A decoy, hidden garments, and strategic exits. Even Miao, her loyal attendant, agreed to take the decoy's place. Thank you for everything, Lin Yue whispered, pulling Miao into an embrace. Please be careful. Yes, my lady, Miao replied with a radiant smile. But their farewell was not without awkwardness. Her mother, ever tactless yet well-meaning, handed her a pouch with herbs. Lin Yue blinked. Medicine. If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties, her mother said smoothly. So take that before you get up to anything. Then mother, waiting for 5 years will be difficult, she added, tapping her fan against her cheek thoughtfully. Seren is certainly old enough to have a child already. The moment burned Lin Yue's face redder than any summer sun. We'll wait until we're officially married, she stammered, horrified at the very public setting of this talk. Fine, fine, her mother relented, laughing behind her fan as the wheels of her carriage began to roll. With hearts heavy yet smiles bravely worn, Lin Yue finally departed. Children waved at the gates. She caught one last glance of Miao and her siblings before pulling down the curtain. Outside, Lixiao rode ahead with the guards, ever watchful. Lin Yue, we should pick up the pace, he called. Looks like it'll start raining soon. Okay. But halfway to the palace, the caravan came to an unexpected halt. Inside her curtained carriage, Lin Yue frowned. We stopped? But we should only be halfway. Her heartbeat quickened. She pressed a hand to the wooden lattice, peeking between the slats. The guards have gathered. Was that Lixiao's voice? Lin Yue, come out here. His voice called firmly. She didn't hesitate. Instinct prickled along her skin. Something was wrong. The situation has changed, Lixiao explained once she emerged. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback. What's going on? She asked, eyes wide as he reached for her hand. The decoy was attacked. My heart is racing, Lin Yue thought as the horse galloped beneath them, Lixiao holding her securely. So fast. Still, it's not as rough as I was expecting. Miao, her thoughts screamed. Don't worry, Lixiao said calmly, sensing her panic. Everyone is fine. The Lu family guards are tough, after all. Lin Yue trembled against his back, her knuckles clenched. Everyone is okay. No. She couldn't quite believe it. Not yet. The petals of a quiet afternoon swirled through the Lu estate like whispers of a forgotten spring, and in that tender stillness, Lin Yue's fingers carefully guided little Quilin's hands over the fragile strings of the erhu. The melody they produced was imperfect, trembling, but sweet, like the honest laughter of a child. Lin Yue smiled, remembering the time Quilin had broken that very instrument, just before the Empress selection ceremony. Now the girl handled it as if it were a sacred treasure, her expression proud and glowing. It sounds so good. Quilin's eyes sparkled with delight. Yes, you're very skilled, Lin Yue affirmed, her voice warm. Let's play some more, she said. Yes, big sister, came the gleeful response. Lin Yue watched her affectionately. I never thought that Quilin would become my little sister, she thought. Elsewhere, under the silent eye of a full moon, within the high walls of the governmental palace, a tense conversation was beginning. Seren sat at his desk, his silhouette stretched by lamplight. A figure cloaked in urgency entered. Seren, I have something urgent to report. Back at the Lu estate, the children were dancing through the corridors of their joy. Sis, let's catch bugs next. How about a board game like Shugoroku? Lin Yue suggested, gently grounding their enthusiasm. Let's do it. But the cheerful moment was soon disrupted. Sullying, a voice, composed and observant, came from behind. You sure are popular, Lin Yue, he remarked. The day continued to weave threads of family and duty. Lin Yue saw her brother preparing to leave. Are you headed to the court? I thought Seren told you to take the day off. My workload won't decrease if I take a break, he replied. Lin Yue offered a wry smile. Ah, that's too bad. Will you be returning to the harem this evening, Lin Yue? Yes, by tomorrow morning, I'll be back to taking care of Jiyu. In the dining hall, Lin Yue was surprised to find another familiar face. Lixiao, why are you here? Heya, Lin Yue, he greeted casually with a bowl of rice in hand. Jiyu ordered me to come pick you up. Seren told me to come too, he added with a grin. Lin Yue blinked in confusion. Wha? As the meal concluded, Lin Yue's eyes softened with serious thought. I have every reason to be targeted, she thought. I'm Jiyu's caretaker, the daughter of the Chancellor of the Right. Though my engagement to Seren remains a secret, she nodded to Lixiao. I'll gladly accept your help. I'll entrust this matter to you. Later the plans took form. Under a canopy of falling petals, Linyua reflected on a fleeting dream. I was just thinking about how I'd like to sneak out to the city, but that won't ever come true, will it? That dream was crushed quite quickly. Still, the world moved on. She asked, will you be escorting my ox carriage, Lixiao? Yeah, that's the plan, he confirmed. But if anything happens, I've been told to take you to the palace by horse, and we'll be using a decoy this time, he added solemnly. Miao will be the decoy, Linyua's mother explained. The plan was precise. The decoy carriage would depart first. Linyua would change into servant's robes, and follow quietly with Lixiao. Before parting, Linyua embraced Miao. Thank you for everything, Linyua whispered. Please be careful. Yes, my lady, Miao replied with a radiant smile. Then came an unexpected moment. Linyua, her mother approached, holding a small package. This is for you. What is it? Linyua asked. Medicine? It smells like burnt herbs. The older woman's voice turned matter-of-fact, and Linyua's face turned crimson. If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties. Take that before you get up to anything. Mother? The older woman laughed behind her fan. Waiting for 5 years will certainly be difficult, but you're both of age. Linyua covered her face, completely flustered. We'll wait until we're officially married. Her mother raised an amused brow. So it's best to be prepared. I could tell how much he liked you yesterday. This is definitely not the kind of conversation one should have in the yard, especially not with Lixiao and the guards nearby. The moment passed, and the decoy carriage rolled on. Linyua peeked through the curtain, watching Miao leave with a small wave. Not long after, as Linyua rode behind Lixiao, he glanced toward the sky. We should pick up the pace. It looks like it'll start raining soon. Okay, she replied, adjusting her grip. Suddenly, the carriage halted. We stopped, she thought. But we should only be halfway to the palace. Peeking through the lattice, Linyua whispered. I can't see what's going on outside. I wonder if something happened. She could hear faint voices, guards gathering. Linyua, come out here. Lixiao's voice cut through the tension. I have a bad feeling about this, she murmured. The situation has changed, Lixiao announced. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback. Linyua nodded. Okay. As the horse galloped, Linyua's heart pounded. So fast. Still, it's not as rough as I was expecting. Then Lixiao's voice came, sharp and calm. The decoy was attacked. Linyua's breath caught. What's going on? Miao, don't worry. Lixiao reassured her. Everyone is fine. But Linyua's heart refused to settle. No. Finally, the trees parted. Light streamed through bamboo thickets. As the true carriage came into view, the carriage Miao was riding in. What's the current situation? Lixiao asked the guards. We have 2 wounded. All the bandits have been apprehended. And Miao. She's right over there, sir. Linyua exhaled slowly. It's all right. Everything is completely fine. And yet deep within, the tremble of uncertainty lingered. Beneath the gently swaying crimson maple leaves of the imperial courtyard, Linyua appeared with a light, graceful step, leading 2 young children by the hand. A warm nostalgic air clung to the soft rustle of silk robes as she turned a corner, and there he stood. Linyua, came the soft call. Draped in official robes, and donning a court hat, the man emerged from the corridor, like a sigh in the wind. Are you headed to the court? Linyua asked, surprise lightly tinting her voice. I thought Soren told you to take the day off, but the man's eyes were already weary. My workload won't decrease if I take a break, he replied, half a smile on his lips, but no light in his gaze. Linyua gave him a knowing glance, and a chuckle. Oh, well that's too bad. Then after a pause, she asked gently. Will you be returning to the harem this evening? Yes, by tomorrow morning, I'll be back to taking care of Jiyu. As the sun climbed higher, shadows began to stretch beneath the beams of the corridor. I'll be leaving now. I'll see you later, the courtier said. Oh right, mother was looking for you earlier. Go to the dining hall, Linyua reminded him. He gave a small nod. She was? All right then. She turned to the children with warmth. Sorry you two, I've got to go to the dining hall. You go ahead and play without me. Okay, the children chimed back. Take care big brother, see ya. Inside the hall, Lin Yue stepped lightly across the polished floor. Mother, what did you need? But the scene that greeted her froze her tongue. There, chomping away at a bowl of rice with full, unbothered gusto, was a tall, broad-shouldered man, with wild hair. Lixiel. He looked up mid-chew and beamed. Heya Lin Yue. Eyes wide, she marched toward him. Why are you here? Ha ha ha, Ji Yu ordered me to come pick you up. She blinked, stunned. Huh, really? Soren told me to come too, Lixiel added, as if that explained everything. Wow. Lin Yue was too baffled to argue. As they sat down together, Lin Yue mulled over everything, fingers brushing the edge of her sleeve. I have every reason to be targeted, she thought, with bitter clarity. I'm Ji Yu's caretaker, daughter of the Chancellor of the Right, and though it's still a secret, I'm also Soren's fiancé. I'll gladly accept your help, she said at last. I'm glad you understand. Lixiel replied, still chewing nonchalantly. She turned away, trying to settle the tangle in her chest. Cherry blossoms danced like whispers across her memory as Lin Yue sighed. I was just thinking about how I'd like to sneak out to the city like my brother, but that dream was crushed quite quickly. Will you be escorting my ox carriage, Lixiel? She asked, brushing a petal from her lap. Yeah, that's the plan, he said with calm certainty. But if anything were to happen, I've been told to take you by horse to the palace. Huh. Additionally, we'll be using a decoy this time. The decoy will be Miao, her mother announced. The plan was quietly set into motion. Lin Yue looked down at the folded garments in her hand, deep red, the same worn by servants. Before departure, Lin Yue held Miao close. Please be careful, she whispered. Yes, my lady. Miao smiled radiantly, and then she was gone, lost in the sway of the curtain. Lin Yue turned to Lixiel, heart heavy with uncertainty. Why is all this necessary? He didn't answer, only bit into a steamed bun with deliberate slowness. All this must mean there's a chance I could be attacked, either because of Ji Yu, or my father, she thought, clenching the fabric of her robe. If possible, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it, she said. All right then, I'll entrust this matter to you. His smile, though small, carried the weight of assurance. The gate creaked open. Her mother, siblings, and Miel saw her off, their faces laced with parting sorrow and hope. Miel hugged her again, and Lin Yue accepted a small pouch. Medicine. It smells like burnt herbs. Take that before you get up to anything, her mother warned slyly, shimmering fan, covering a knowing smirk. Lin Yue's face flushed. Mother, waiting 5 years will certainly be difficult, her mother added lightly. Lin Yue nearly combusted. At last they departed. Under the watchful canopy of bamboo and clouds, Lin Yue sat in the ox carriage, while Lixiel rode beside it. She peeked through the curtain. Why is the carriage stopping? We should be halfway to the palace. Outside, she could hear shifting feet, murmurs, the rustle of drawn weapons. Lin Yue, come out here. I have a bad feeling about this, she thought, pushing open the carriage door. The situation has changed. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback, Lixiel said firmly, extending his hand. Okay, she replied, without hesitation, grasping his. Wind rushed past them, hooves thundered beneath. She clung to him tightly. So fast. My heart is racing. Still, it's not as rough as I was expecting. The decoy was attacked, Lixiel said flatly. Miao. Everyone is fine. Don't worry, he assured her. No. Lin Yue clutched tighter. Everything is completely fine. It's all right. But the sight of the returning carriage stole the breath from her chest. What's the current situation? Lixiel asked a nearby guard. 2 wounded. All the bandits have been apprehended. And what about Mia? Right over there, sir. Then Lin Yue saw her. Mia. But then, why is she collapsed like that? A tightness coiled in her lungs. The world tilted. Sound distorted. Lin Yue. I can't breathe. Her limbs weakened, collapsing. Lin Yue, pull yourself together. Lixiel caught her, eyes flashing. I'm leaving the rest to you. You Yiras. Yes, sir. And they rode, hard and fast. Even though I want to ask, I can't breathe, and the words won't come out. Is Miao actually okay? What about the guards? What about the wounded? Are they going to be all right? But for now, there was only wind, hooves, and a galloping heart. The golden light of early morning danced through carved lattice work, as Lanua turned a corner, the long hem of her ornate robe brushing quietly against the polished floors. Her eyes widened at the unexpected sight before her. "Mother, what did you need?" she began, but her words faded when she spotted the familiar silhouette hunched over a bowl, devouring his food with loud chomps that echoed like a drumbeat in the otherwise serene corridor. Lixia. He looked up mid-bite, grinning with his usual carefree charm. "Heya, Lanua," she blinked. "Lixia. Why are you here?" "Yu Yeo ordered me to come pick you up," he explained casually, lifting his bowl like a toast. "Ha ha ha. Soren told me to come too." Her jaw dropped slightly. "Wah!" As she watched him eat, unbothered, perhaps even joyous, she couldn't help but feel a strange cocktail of amusement and anxiety. "What an overblown reaction," she muttered, under her breath. But then again, was it really? Her thoughts whispered louder than she wanted them to. I have every reason to be targeted. She was, after all, Jiel's caretaker, and daughter of the Chancellor of the Right. Her engagement to Soren, still a well-kept secret, only added more weight to her position. Everyone knew she was close to the royal family. She watched Lixio calmly munching. "I'll gladly accept your help. I'm glad you understand," he said with a rare seriousness, then returned to his bowl. The spring blossoms outside waved gently, as Lanua turned her gaze outward, wistful.
I was just thinking about how I'd like to sneak out into the city like my brother, but the dream of freedom crumbled like ash in the wind. "Will you be escorting my ox carriage, Lixiel?" she asked gently,
the petals drifting around her like a forgotten wish. "Yeah, that's the plan," he replied. "But if anything happens, I've been told to take you by horse to the palace." The plan was already layered with caution. Additionally, Lixio added in a low voice, "We'll be using a decoy this time." "Miel," her mother confirmed from the side. Miel stood up, dressed in the familiar dark red garments of a servant. "Well then, I'm off," she said with a gentle smile. "Miel, wait." Lanua rushed forward and embraced her tightly. "Please be careful. Thank you for everything," Miel replied, the hug soft, genuine. "Yes, my lady," she said with a bright smile. Back inside, Lanua's expression turned solemn. "Lixia,
Why is all this necessary?" The calmness of his expression did not match the gravity in her chest. "All this must mean there's a chance I could be attacked," she thought, "either because of Jiel or my father. If possible, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it," she said softly.
Lixio met her gaze. "All right then, I'll entrust this matter to you," he smiled.
The carriage waited, sturdy and polished, ready to carry her toward a destiny she had little say in. "Take care of yourself," her mother said, voice even, eyes kind. "If there's anything you need, I'll have it prepared." Lanua nodded. "Thank you, mother. Take care of yourself too." She knelt and hugged the children. "We'll see each other again soon." The mood lightened just a little, but not for long. "Lanua," her mother called again. She placed a small pouch in Lanua's hand. "This is for you." Lanua sniffed it. "Medicine? It smells like burnt herbs." Her mother's smile twitched slyly. "If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties, so take that before you get up to anything." "Mother?" Lanua blushed furiously. "Putting you aside," her mother mused. "Soren is already old enough to have a child, correct?" Lanua turned scarlet. "No, we'll wait until we're officially married." The laughter that followed echoed even after the carriage left. Their journey began. Gentle clops and wooden wheels hummed beneath them. The sky overhead dimmed slightly. "Lanua, we should pick up the pace," Lixiao called from atop his horse. "Looks like it'll start raining soon." "Okay," she answered. But just as the forest thickened, the carriage slowed. "We stopped?" Lanua thought, peering from within. "But we should only be halfway to the palace." She pressed her hand to the wooden lattice. She could hear muffled voices. "Lixiao's?" Suddenly, "Lanua, come out here." Something was wrong. "I have a bad feeling about this," she whispered, rushing out. Lixiao met her halfway, eyes intense. "The situation has changed. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback." "Oh, okay." He pulled her up, his grip steady, comforting. "My heart is racing," she thought, clinging to him. So fast, but not as rough as I expected. Then came the words that struck her. The decoy was attacked. Lanua's eyes widened in horror. "Meow? She's safe," Lixiao reassured her. "Everyone is fine. The Lu family guards are tough." But her heart whispered, no, she needed to see with her own eyes. When the carriage came into view, relief washed over her. Meow had survived. "What's the current situation?" Lixiao asked. Yujia, one of the guards, saluted. 2 wounded. All the bandits have been apprehended. And the decoy? Right over there, sir. Lanua ran forward, only to freeze in her tracks. Miao had collapsed. But then, why is she collapsed like that? Her chest tightened, breath became shallow. I can't breathe. She staggered, fell to her knees. Lanua, pull yourself together. Lixiao didn't hesitate. Yujia, I'm leaving the rest to you. Yes, sir. He rode hard, one hand around her, shielding her as she gasped and clutched her chest. Is Miao actually okay? What about the guards? What about the wounded? Are they going to be all right? Even though I want to ask, I can't breathe and the words won't come out. Then, she gasped as her blurred vision steadied on a familiar figure. It was him, Shunned. His presence melted the tension like sunlight on frost. How strange. As soon as I saw Shunned, the pain disappeared. I could breathe again without difficulty. I'm okay, she murmured, her hand slowly unclenching. Shunned knelt beside her. What's the matter? She smiled weakly. It doesn't hurt anymore. He reached out to her, his eyes warm but shadowed with worry. Lixiao, arms crossed nearby, added, I was wondering what happened when I brought you back in my arms. Really? She asked softly. Yes, Shunned answered, his voice low. He didn't need to say more. The storm had passed, for now, but in Lanua's heart, this moment, this feeling had taken root like the first bloom of spring. The early morning light filtered through the lattice windows of the Lu residence, painting delicate patterns on the wooden floors. The courtyard was quiet, save for the soft rustle of robes, and a gentle breeze that carried the scent of plum blossoms. Lanua stood poised at the threshold, dressed in traveling attire, her eyes clear but solemn. Well then, I'm off, she said, her voice carrying a calm finality. From behind her came a soft cry. Meow. Wait, it was her lady, her dearest friend, stepping quickly across the polished stones. Lanua turned, only for the lady to wrap her in a firm embrace. Please be careful. Lanua hesitated, then returned the embrace with a faint smile. Thank you for everything. As they pulled apart, her lady's eyes were moist with emotion. Yes, my lady, Lanua replied, bowing slightly. From the shadows of a nearby corridor, the figure of Lixiao appeared. Calm, enigmatic, always observant. Lanua's thoughts turned inward. Lixiao, why is all this necessary? She remembered his earlier instructions, given with his usual quiet authority, while sipping a steamed bun. If possible, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it. He hadn't said more, but Lanua could sense it. This wasn't just a ceremonial departure. There was danger looming. All this must mean there's a chance I could be attacked, either because of Jiyu or my father. Lanua clenched the letter he had given her, her thoughts running wild. It doesn't seem like he plans to tell me. No matter the circumstances, this is far too over the top. But she nodded nonetheless. All right then, I'll entrust this matter to you. Lixiao smiled, a rare reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Outside the gates, her mother and younger siblings awaited her departure. The Imperial Guards stood at attention, their presence both comforting and foreboding. Take care of yourself, her mother said gently, cupping her daughter's cheek. If there's anything you need, I'll have it prepared for you right away. Thank you, mother. Take care of yourself too. Quillan and Philong, her younger siblings, wrapped themselves around her legs in a teary hug. We'll see each other again soon enough, Lanua whispered, stroking their heads. Until then, take care. The children sniffled, their faces damp with tears, but tried to smile bravely. As she was about to mount the carriage, 2 more figures hurried toward her, her younger cousins. Big sis, Sia Lanua. They clung to her with affection, their voices cracking. Just then, her mother called her aside once more. Lanua, yes, this is for you. She handed her a small ornate pouch. Lanua opened it slightly. There was a sharp, burnt herbal scent. Medicine? It smells like burnt herbs. Her mother's eyes twinkled with mischievous wisdom. If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties. So take that before you get up to anything. Lanua blanched. Mother? Her mother continued mercilessly. Waiting for 5 years will certainly be difficult. Shunned is already old enough to have a child, correct? Putting you aside for a moment, due to his position, he can't even go to a brothel. Mother, is this really the place to be talking about such things? I could tell how much he liked you after seeing you together yesterday. Lanua's face turned redder by the second. We'll wait until we're officially married. But her mother's teasing wouldn't stop. It's understandable that mother is worried. But still, eventually, her mother stepped back with a flutter of her fan. Take care. The gate opened with a creak,
and the carriage wheels began to turn. Lanua lifted the curtain one last time, her gaze drifting to the waving hands of her family. Her heart ached. So many goodbyes, so many words left unspoken. Lanua, Lixiao called from horseback. We should pick up the pace. It looks like it'll start raining soon. Okay, she responded, and let the curtain fall. But just halfway to the palace, something changed. The carriage came to a jarring halt. Lanua felt it immediately, the tension in the air, the silent shuffle of feet outside. We stopped, but we should only be halfway to the palace. She peered through the curtain's lattice. I can't see what's going on. The guards have gathered. She strained her ears. Was that Lixiao's voice? And then Lanua, come out here. Her heart skipped. Something was wrong. She threw open the carriage door and stepped out. I have a bad feeling about this. Lixiao was already at her side. The situation has changed. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback. He reached for her, and she nodded, swallowing her fear. Okay. They rode hard. The trees blurred past, so fast. My heart is racing. The decoy was attacked, Lixiao said grimly. Lanua's blood ran cold. What's going on? Mao? She called out suddenly, voice rising in panic. Supposedly, everyone is fine. Don't worry about it, Lixiao said. But Lanua didn't believe it. No, everyone is okay. But, the carriage that Mao had been riding in came into view. What's the current situation? Lixiao barked. We have 2 wounded, and all the bandits have been apprehended, a guard replied. Lanua's breath caught in her throat as she searched for Mao. Her vision blurred, her chest tightened. Why is she collapsed like that? Her breath grew shallow, her limbs went numb. I can't breathe. Lanua, Lixiao shouted. Pull yourself together. But it was no use. Her world went black. She awoke in unfamiliar sheets, the scent of peonies in the air. It doesn't hurt anymore, she whispered, blinking at the ceiling. How strange. As soon as I saw Shuren, the pain from before disappeared. He was there, beside her, his gaze heavy with worry. I brought you to my palace to be examined by Kalen, he said gently. The door opened, revealing a striking figure, pale hair, eyes like moonlight, poised and elegant. What a beautiful woman, beautiful enough that my brother would immediately try flirting with her. Kalen, the physician, stepped forward with quiet confidence. Any dizziness? Nausea? No, not at all. Hyperventilating, another exclaimed. So she's not going to die, right? Kalen remained composed. Hyperventilation is quite common. It can occur when someone is under great mental strain, but it's not life-threatening. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The early morning light filtered softly through the latticed windows, bathing the corridors of the Lu estate in gold. Within the calm of the household, the time had come for departure. Well then, I'm off. Mal stood, poised and elegant, her words carried gently into the room. Lanua turned quickly, her voice catching on the edge of emotion. Mal, wait, she called. Without hesitation, Lanua stepped forward, embracing Mal, with all the quiet strength she'd held back. Her arms curled around her, holding her close. Please be careful. Thank you for everything, Mal replied, her voice soft, her head resting gently on Lanua's shoulder. The world fell momentarily silent around them, the petals of late spring drifting through the air, like memories untold. Lanua gave a tearful smile, her eyes shimmering. Yes, my lady. From behind them, the stately doors opened, revealing the broader world that awaited. But as Lanua stood alone in the quiet that followed, her gaze turned thoughtful, her hand resting lightly over her heart. Lixiao, why is all this necessary? She murmured to herself. Her thoughts, tangled like threads, struggled to make sense of the tension beneath the surface. Inside, Lixiao drank calmly, his expression as unreadable as the surface of a still pond. If possible, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it, he said, not meeting her eyes. The unspoken weight of his words hung in the air, like a veil. Lanua gripped her robes, her thoughts racing. No matter the circumstances, this is far too over the top. All this must mean there's a chance I could be attacked, either because of Jiyu or my father. It doesn't seem like he plans to tell me. Still, she nodded with quiet resolve. All right then, I'll entrust this matter to you. Lixiao smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. It was the calm before a storm yet to break. Outside, the gates of the estate loomed, ready to part. Take care of yourself. If there's anything you need, I'll have it prepared for you right away, Lanua's mother said, her voice gentle, but firm. Lanua bowed deeply. Thank you, mother. Take care of yourself too. Fei Long and Quailan embraced her next, the children clinging to her sleeves with watery eyes. We'll see each other again soon enough. Until then, take care, she said softly, squeezing their tiny hands. Behind her, the servants waited with quiet patience. Big sis, see ya Lanua. The children wrapped their arms around her waist, and she held them as tightly as she could, her heart full of warmth and sorrow. Then, unexpectedly, her mother called her once more. Lanua, this is for you. In her hand, she held a small pouch with a round ceramic container, the faint smell of burnt herbs curling from within. Medicine. Lanua blinked. It smells like burnt herbs. What is it? Her mother leaned in with a sharp glint in her eye. If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties. So take that before you get up to anything. Lanua flushed scarlet. My mother? Putting you aside, for a moment, Shunned is already old enough to have a child, correct? Waiting 5 years will certainly be difficult, but due to the complexities of his position, he can't go to a brothel. Lanua's entire body stiffened, smoke practically rising from her ears. Fine, she stammered. No, we'll wait until we're officially married. Her mother only laughed behind her fan. Take care. Soon after, the carriage rolled forward with a soft clatter of wheels. Lanua parted the curtain to peek outside, catching her family waving from the gate. She smiled, holding back tears. From horseback, Lixiao called out, Lanua, we should pick up the pace. It looks like it'll start raining soon. Okay, she answered, letting the curtain fall back into place. But halfway through the forest path, the carriage slowed. The clattering of hooves and wheels faltered. We stop, but we should only be halfway to the palace. Peering through the lattice, Lanua could barely make out the hushed voices beyond. I wonder if something happened. The guards have gathered around. Was that Lixiao's voice? I can't hear clearly. Lanua, come out here. It was him. She didn't hesitate. She had a bad feeling. The situation has changed, he told her. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback. She nodded, her hand slipping into his as he helped her up. Okay. As they rode, the wind blew against her face. So fast, my heart is racing. But it's not as rough as I was expecting. Lixiao's voice cut through her thoughts. The decoy was attacked, she gasped, holding tighter to him. What's going on? Supposedly everyone is fine. Don't worry about it. The Lu family guards are tough. After all, everyone is okay. Mel, no. Their group approached the ambushed carriage. It's coming into view now. Lanua, said one of the guards. The carriage Mel was riding in. Lanua whispered, her eyes wide with dread. Lixiao's tone sharpened. What's the current situation? 2 wounded. All the bandits have been apprehended. And Mel? Lanua asked urgently. Right over there, sir. They turned, and there she was. Mel collapsed. But then, why is she collapsed like that? Lanua's breath grew uneven. Her chest tightened. Suddenly, Lanua gasped. I can't breathe. Lanua, pull yourself together. Her knees buckled. Her vision blurred. Lixiao scooped her into his arms without hesitation. Yugia, I'm leaving the rest to you. Yes, sir. He urged the horse forward, faster than before. Is Mel actually okay? What about all the guards? What about the wounded? Are they going to be all right? Even though I want to ask, I can't breathe, and the words won't come out. The doors to a new residence opened. It's certain, Lanua murmured, her vision finally clearing. His voice, calm and warm, washed over her. Lanua, what's the matter? He clutched her hand. I'm okay. And just like that, her pain vanished. How strange. As soon as I saw Soren, the pain from before disappeared, as if it were never real. I could breathe again. He turned to her gently. This is my palace. I brought you here to be examined by Kalen. Kalen. The door creaked open. In stepped a poised, ethereal woman with an aura of quiet authority. Her pale hair framed her delicate face. What a beautiful woman. Beautiful enough that my brother would immediately try flirting with her if he were here. Kalen examined Lanua with clinical precision. Any dizziness? Nausea? No, not at all. Lixiao looked relieved. She was hyperventilating. She's already calmed down now. Hyperventilating. So she's not sick. She's not going to die, right? Belle, Hua cried, visibly flustered. Hyperventilation is quite common, Kalen said coolly. It can occur when someone is under great mental strain, but it's not life-threatening. The girl named Mel is fine. Lixiao announced later. Really? When she was getting out of the carriage, she tripped and bumped her head. Nothing serious. Lanua clutched her chest. I'm so happy. You'll rest here for a while, and then return home, Kaelin instructed. As the mysterious medical officer exited the room, Lanua watched her go. There are more than a dozen medical officers responsible for ZU's care in the harem, but today's the first day I've ever seen her. Is she a medical officer? I've never heard of a woman being one before. Kaelin glanced back one final time. Good day. And just like that, she was gone. The warm paper-scented calm of the morning was broken by a quiet urgency. In a quiet courtyard, filtered through veils of sunlight, Lanua stood poised, her robes whispering against the wooden floor. Her fingers clutched a folded letter, trembling slightly as she digested its words. If possible, I'd like you to pretend you don't know anything about it, said a calm voice beside her. Lixiao, casually eating his bun, ever composed despite the weight of her request. All right then, I'll entrust this matter to you. His trust was silent but absolute. She nodded, trying not to show the storm swirling within her. Farewells and warnings. By the ornate gates of the Lu residence, her mother stood tall with grace, giving last-minute instructions. Take care of yourself. If there's anything you need, I'll have it prepared for you right away. Thank you, mother. Take care of yourself too, Lanua replied, her voice softer than usual. Beside her, Fei Long and Kulin clung to her robes, eyes brimming with unshed tears. Big sis, see ya, Lanua. They embraced, a tangle of quiet affection and subtle sadness. The separation loomed like a cloud. Then came a discreet but striking moment. Her mother stepped closer, pressing a small pouch into her hand. This is for you, she said. Medicine. It smells like burnt herbs. Lanua wondered, then the shock. If you were to fall pregnant now, you'd end up neglecting your duties. So take that before you get up to anything. Mother, face flushed. Lanua spluttered objections, her dignity unraveling, as her mother continued bluntly. Waiting for 5 years will certainly be difficult, but due to the complexities of his position, he can't go to a brothel. Lanua's embarrassment flared in full bloom. This is definitely not the kind of conversation one should have in the yard. Into the unknown, the clatter of carriage wheels filled the quiet, as they set off, leaving the gates behind. The air grew dense, damp with the scent of coming rain. Lixiao rode beside the caravan, alone. We should pick up the pace. It looks like it'll start raining soon. Okay, Lanua responded. Yet just halfway to the palace, the caravan ground to an unexpected halt. Lanua glanced around, heart tugged by unease. We stopped, but we should only be halfway. Peeking through the lattice, she caught glimpses of guards gathering, murmured voices, Lixiao's sharp tone. Something wasn't right. Lanua, come out here. I have a bad feeling about this. She hurried out, just as Lixiao reached for her. The situation has changed. We'll go the rest of the way on horseback. Okay, she replied, eyes wide but resolute. Flight and fear. Galloping fast, Lanua clung to him as the forest blurred past. Her thoughts spiraled. My heart is racing, so fast. Still, it's not as rough as I was expecting. But then, the news struck. The decoy was attacked. Shock stiffened her spine. What's going on? Supposedly everyone is fine, Lixiao assured her. Don't worry about it. But Lanua couldn't shake her mind clung to a single name, Male. But then, why is she collapsed like that? Then her own body betrayed her. The air thinned. I can't breathe. She collapsed mid-ride, body curling in panic. Everything faded. Shorin's touch. When she awoke, Shorin was there. His presence, calm, elegant, radiant as ever, melted the tightness in her chest. How strange. As soon as I saw Sorin, the pain disappeared. I could breathe again. It doesn't hurt anymore, she said aloud, as if to convince herself it was true. Shorin remained close, concern etched on his serene face. I was wondering what happened when Lixiao brought you back in his arms. Really? Yes. She looked around. Come to think of it, where are we? This is my palace, he answered. I brought you here to be examined by Kaelin, a uniquely qualified doctor. And then she entered. Kaelin, pale-haired, graceful with an air of aloof brilliance. A woman, and yet introduced simply as doctor. Lanua thought, what a beautiful woman. Beautiful enough that my brother would have tried flirting with her. Any dizziness, nausea? Kaelin asked calmly. No, not at all. She was hyperventilating, Kaylin explained to everyone's relief. It's quite common under mental strain, not life-threatening. Manua was overwhelmed but grateful. Thank you, doctor. Kaylin paused, surprised. Did I say something strange? Manua thought. If you need anything else, come back here. I'm on the second floor. Kaylin replied with a soft glance before departing. Epilogue. A quiet grace. It seems you've taken a liking to Kaylin, Shorin noted gently. Huh, even though women can't be medical officers. You called her doctor. She seemed pleased by that. Manua mulled over the idea. She accepted me as a patient. As the petals drifted outside, and Beowulm hummed her way to prepare tea. Manua smiled quietly, her fingers relaxing for the first time in hours. I'm so happy.